Okay, we're gonna get started in a minute. If you can have your seats. All right, thank you. Welcome back. Hope you had a nice lunch. Thank you again to NYU. That was way more than I thought as well for lunch. Delicious. We have with us today a special guest, Samuel Lim, formerly from the LTA in Singapore, now from Qatar Rail. He actually came to the first initial edition of the symposium back in Montreal in 2018 as an attendee. And he had some maps that he wanted to talk to people about, and we gave him a speaking slot on the spot because it was, why not? Let's talk about some maps. And he gave a great presentation, so I'm looking forward to what he has for us today. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Okay, loud enough. Thank you. Okay, so where do I begin? I want to thank the organizers for putting this together because it's very insightful for myself. And it's very nice to meet people who kind of knows what you're talking about. Like finally, so this morning's talk, I was like, yes, like I didn't have to explain all these things. So I wanted to bring back to what you mentioned, the sounds. I actually have a piggy bank from Japan, where you drop a coin, every time you drop, it will be a different sound of the train station. So I love that. And then, yeah, okay. So I will quickly run through because there's quite a lot to cover. And I have this habit of overrunning. So, Richard, if I overrun, just shout yalla, okay? Because yalla to me means let's go, okay? It means, it can be very politely like yalla, let's go, or yalla, like get along with it, yeah? Okay? Okay, I will very quickly start with Singapore. I actually forgot to put this slide. I wanted to jump straight into yalla, let's go to Qatar, but I realized I needed to give a background. So I added it just now. A bit of a background. I started off observing commuter behavior in one of our oldest station, Outram Park station. So at this exact escalator, you will see people going up and down the same set of escalators every single day. So the reason why I had the chance to observe this was I had an internship at that station. I never went to this station until that 1 month. And then every single day I will see people of different demographics, of different age group. Not just tourists, not just elderly, not just kids, but everyone making the exact same mistake. So I was just thinking, why not just fix this sign? Because as a layman, you'll be like, oh, just change the sign, it will be fine. So at the same time I was in design school, I had to find a research topic. So when I started to change this design for fun, I realized when you touch one sign, you touch every sign. When you touch every sign in the station, you touch the whole network. So then it evolved into me proposing it as a research topic for my prof, and then it got approved miraculously because like there's no wayfinding school back then. So what they could provide me was a platform to sort of help them understand the challenges. So if they don't get it, that means my audience wouldn't get it because at the end of the day, they are the users. So that was a really good training ground for me to try to pitch the problem, frame the problem over and over again. Every week I have to reframe the issue of what's going on in the metro in Singapore to the point where I could put together a research thesis, and then it was published. And then, again, miraculously, by chance, the Transport Authority saw the work, and then we had the chance to collaborate. And then for 5 years, we worked on research and prototyping. We spent a lot of time tearing down egos and undoing a lot of the works over 20 years, trying not to offend people along the way. And then finally, we launched in the newest metro line, Thomson East Coast Line. And yeah, so that was what happened, okay? And I wanted to say, if you notice, Yo just now, he mentioned the yellow color was used in Japan effectively as the exit. So I have never been to Japan because I was a poor student back then. And then I chose yellow because there was this one sign that really annoyed me in Singapore. It was like a breakdown sign. So they plastered the sign to tell you that if the train breaks down, you should go to exit XYZ, find a bus as a replacement. But the sign is there permanently, so every day it looks like the train is broken down. I wanted to remove that sign, so I took the yellow from that sign and said, that shall be the exit. And then the management wasn't convinced. We had to run a whole survey to get people to choose between different colors. And then we did a quick online study, and I somehow yellow won, and then that's how yellow became. And then I went to Japan as a grad trip, and then I was like, oh my God, I was right. Yellow was the right color, and then that happened. Okay, so I'm very happy, and I love Japan because they validated a lot of the things we did. So now about Qatar. These are some of the photos I shot. Inland sea, which is very interesting because it's a desert, but there's water right next to it. It's very fascinating to see. The West Bay, which is like the CBD area by the waters, and then the famous National Museum. Not sent here by the tourism board, but you can visit Qatar. There's a lot to see, okay? And all connected by the metro, okay? So now I'll quickly talk about the World Cup because I think that's something that everyone knows Qatar for now, and very proudly actually was hired 6 months before the World Cup to fix the metro. Obviously, I'm not the one person hired to fix the metro, but like, I didn't know what I was signing up for. They just decided that, hey, we want someone, and then why not you come? And then I didn't even know, because Singapore is so small, and we have never hosted such a massive event, I was really naive. I didn't know what was in store for me, and I just thought it was another metro job, and I like metro, so why not just try? But turns out, later on, I learned that it's the world's most compact World Cup, okay? So this is where I was, where I'm at now. Hopefully after this talk, I'm still there. At Qatar Rail, so it was the transit authority for the rail network. So we design and we build new stations. We also look at the metro operations, we look at crowd management and customer experience planning. So this was our involvement during the World Cup. And then we have RKH, which is our operator. It's a joint venture by RATP Dev and Keolis. Okay, so they are the network operator for both the metro and tram. And then we have SCDL, which is the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy. They are the people responsible for the host country planning and operations. So a lot of the success story that you hear about the World Cup, actually the credit goes to them. They've done a great job connecting people from the metro to the stadiums and bringing people around the whole network. Okay, so what did I do? I actually worked with Supreme Committee very closely to plan the signs inside the metro, but they take on after the metro. Okay, so I want to give you some context on why this metro is why this World Cup is such a big deal, and that I feel like I want to celebrate the fact that it's the most compact. Okay, so I took Germany as an example because it's kind of neutral today. There are 12 stadiums scattered across Germany. So again, because I'm from Singapore, I don't really understand World Cup. I did not know that people actually had to fly around a country to watch the games or to chase or follow your team as fans. In contrast, Qatar is this small compared to Germany, and then these are the 8 stadiums in Qatar. So for the first time in history, you can take metro from one game to another game within the same day, and I did literally that. I watched something in the afternoon, and then we took a metro, and then we watched another one in the evening. It was a very tight experience, and fans from around the world constantly intermingle, and that was like a very special experience. Again, I did not know, I don't follow World Cup, but a lot of fans actually highlighted that was a very special thing. So I'm very happy to be part of that. Yeah? So this is the metro signs. What we did, because 6 months before the game, I couldn't have changed anything about this. We did try to fix some of the issues on ground. For example, we uprooted 2 signs and rotated them to, because that was critical. We changed some of the panels where we could, but we focused a lot of our energy with SCDL's design. So this sign on top you see are guidelines and design from the SCDL. They hired a consultant. And then what we did was we tell them the placements, the message they should share. And then we work very closely with our transport planning team. So they will decide, we will close certain exits for crowd management, and they will make sure that our signs are communicating with each other. So they could paste something up there, and we have to make sure that our signs don't conflict with the message. And then finally, they have World Cup dressing. That is also done by SCDL, but also approved by us, because we don't want people to be misled by colors or placement of the dressing, because they are not just for show. They actually have, they actually influence the flows. Yeah? Okay, so those are signs inside the metro, and then after the metro, they actually continue a much larger scale of work, connecting people to the stadiums and key tourist attractions, like the Corniche, and this is Souk Waqif. Okay, all connected by the metro. So now I'll talk to you about a bit about the metro. It was built very rapidly within 6 years. We have 3 lines, 34 stations. It's in operation since May 2019. I'll show you some of the stations that we have. This is Bida station. It's an interchange between 2 lines. Okay, you notice there's this vaulted design. Not an architect, I can't tell you much, but I love it. I love how it looks. And then this is Assad station. Most of our station has the typical shelter design from the outside. Okay, so they share a very uniform design language throughout. And then this is Musharraf, the largest station. It's a 3-line interchange. Yeah, and it was selected as the world selection for the Prix Versailles back in 2020. Okay. So during my 1.5 years, almost coming to 2 years in June, I actually gave a shot at redesigning the maps. So this is Lusail tram map, and that's the Doha Metro map. This was launched last year, December, and that was launched this year, Jan, coinciding with Asian Cup. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about the design of the maps. Okay, before that, this is the existing map. It's not, how do I say, it's not wrong, right? But we found that there were areas that we could improve on. So something that I felt personally was that the curves of each line is not consistent, and I wanted to fix that. And then we have this congested area in the middle, which actually makes certain stations share the caplet. I mean, caplet is a Singapore term, the station code, I would say, right? So I needed to fix this, and I thought there were a lot of room for us to expand the map to make it more legible. So this is the new map that I launched. The difference between working on this map versus Singapore, right, is that because Qatar's system is so young, there was not a lot of legacy to protect. So getting this approved was relatively easy, because as long as you prove that it worked and that we have a plan for the future, the stakeholders were generally very open about it. So how did I get this approved? I actually designed this all the way to the phase 2 of the network, which I cannot show you, unfortunately, because it's not yet launched. But using the future map and its complexities, I was able to convince the management that we need to change and fix it today. Okay? And if you notice, there's P inside, because Qatar is still a car-centric city. So one of the lessons we had during the Asian Cup is that people tend to use the park and rides facility to use the metro. So we added the P to highlight that you can actually easily translate into the metro because we have facilities scattered around the network. Okay? And the congestion is sort of fixed here. And in the future, there will be even more congestion because lines will actually go through here. So why did I not, the color not translating. So why did I not do a map like what we did in Singapore? This was launched in 2019 as part of the new Thomson line that I mentioned earlier. I'm sorry, but the color is not showing. If you can see over here, there's waters, and there are a lot of elements of the city. So why did I not do the same thing for Qatar? Because of stakeholder management. Like I mentioned, we needed to roll this out quickly. So I didn't want to push the boundaries too much, and I wanted to fix the issue today for Asian Cup as an inroad. Then we can talk about adding delight and adding additional design elements to it. Okay, so this is a lesson on stakeholder management, because for this map, we actually went through a lot of iterations. I took over a year to get this approved. Meanwhile, the Qatar one took about 1 month for approval. Okay? And this is what we did for Asian Cup, similar to what we did for World Cup. We planted the stadiums, the 9 stadiums for Asian Cup across the network map, which I thought this is quite a privilege, because I can't really think of another context or another city that we can do this, because there's just no need for it. But for Qatar, it's very unique. We can actually plant the stadiums and tell you how to get there as a navigational tool. So this was done in conjunction with wayfinding. So if you notice, each of these elements, each of these stadium icons have a unique color. We actually adopted this color from Asian Cup's brand guide, which is used for dressings at each stadium. So then the wayfinding is sort of continuous. If you can't read anything, you can't read Arabic, can't read English, you can almost just follow the color of the stadiums to the right game. Okay, now we'll talk about tram. The tram is still being finalized and opening in phases. So right now we have 7 stations in operations. This is the existing map that is on site in one of the stations that is not yet open. So if you notice, there are layers of maps to kind of help you. But what I found challenging is that the line map changes for every single station, which means as a user, you have to relocate yourself, reposition where you are each time you look at the map. And then on top of that, they layered the tram network map with the metro, which kind of makes you think which network are you actually on. So what I did instead is a very different solution. Number one, we redesigned the map, which I showed you just now, but I also shaded the map, the part of the map that doesn't apply to you as a user at that particular point. This is, again, quite unique for this particular type of network because of the way the network is being designed. So why does the shading matter here? It's because of the one-way traffic. So if you're at this station, which is Raudat Lusail, you can only travel one way around the loop. So we wanted you to make sure that you know that you're going to ride on the correct line to go to 2 vastly different stations. Okay? The turquoise line will lead you to one place, and then the orange line will lead you to another. Yeah. So this was quite a challenge because I can't find an example of doing this, and also I felt like it was a gamble, but it paid off because when explaining to people, they had a hard time trying to understand what I was trying to do. But the moment you put it up, they just get it. Yeah. So this is another example. We wanted to make sure that people know which side they are boarding. So for this particular station, our SIL is an underground tram station with a split platform design. So this means you have to choose platform 1 or 2, and the decision can cost you a lot of time. Either you board the wrong train and you go on a loop just to come back to the same spot, or you head to the metro station as intended. So this was critical and kind of the centerpiece where we actually did a prototype of the entire new sign system at, not this, but this station, NIFA, to help get stakeholders buy-in. Okay? And yeah, my designer actually worked quite hard because she had to shade, my team actually had to shade every single station. It's unique for every station. Okay, so this is an example of the underground split platform that I mentioned. Right before you commit to the platform, you have to decide whether this is the correct site to go to. These walls were originally empty and there were no indication of where you're headed. And then this is an at-grade platform where the same set of signs you notice are adopted in a different fashion. Okay, again, this was not mentioned previously. And then for bonus, we have new route maps at the platform's screen doors, only for underground stations, obviously. So this was a key challenge because we have so little space up there, and yet we have to squeeze in a lot of information. So this was a really fun exercise because I didn't think I could do it, but like with the team's help and a lot of iterations and stakeholders' engagement, we actually created this together. Okay. And this is how it looks like. Previously, the team before I joined, they had tried to solve this by doing it a little bit different. So what they did was they have the orange line on one side and the pink line on the other side because they don't want to collapse the map into one. But that kind of resulted in a different behavior, which is queuing for different lines. Yeah, and it almost is dangerous because if you can see, the orange line goes to a lot more stations than the pink line. So if the tram comes and you assume that you are waiting at the correct door and you board, you can end up at a completely different part of town. So yeah, this is what happened. And these platform numbers were added after, as part of this exercise. Previously, there was no platform numbers. We thought to introduce that because of the complexities of the network. Usually a tram shouldn't be so complex, but this city is very large. So we thought to inject that as a case. I realized I forgot to say why we even had a chance to redesign this. So there was a project on renaming the stations to align each tram station to better to the surrounding of the place. So what happened was there was a renaming exercise of the place, and then they wanted to update the station signs to update the names. And I took that as an opportunity. So I said, I don't want to just change the signs. I want to fix it together. So thankfully, I have a very supportive team and management. And then we did a whole case study. I think that should be the next slide. Okay, I'll tell you later. Whoa, 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 okay. That was not supposed to happen. Okay, so I will show you a bit of example what's going on later. But before I jump there, I want to simplify the signs for everyone as part of the tram works. This was an observation during the World Cup. But even before the World Cup, the team before me actually tried to solve this issue. So what's the issue? The issue is that our toilet symbols are a bit too cultural, and it can be quite difficult for foreigners to understand which is male and which is female. And to solve that, someone actually went in to add a sign with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 languages, and then a symbol and an M. It kind of solves it if you look at it as a picture. But when implementing, it created another problem. Because in every of our metro stations, we have a prayer room for male and female, we have toilets, and we have ablution, and we have handy and accessible toilets. So firstly, you have to identify the corridors for male and female, and then you have to identify the correct door to open. So it could result in a bit of an awkward situation if you are headed to the toilet but you are disturbing prayer, our friends who are preparing themselves to pray, okay? Yes, okay, so that is another problem. So we realized that adding more signs isn't necessarily helpful. And one fun fact, over here we have Urdu. Urdu uses the Arabic text to write their language. So we have people writing into us complaining that there's a typo in Arabic because it doesn't make sense to them. So yeah, more isn't always the best, okay? So we want to find a balance with our international commuters. And so this was designed and approved for launch, and we launched them on the tram network first. Okay, what's the difference? We change it to the international standard, and then we kind of lengthen the skirt for the ladies to make it more appropriate. Yeah. I thought this was gonna be very hard to get approvals, but our management immediately understood what we were trying to do. Okay. And the next one. So again, more is not always better. So there's this way out symbol that we notice on the network that changes according to the arrows where possible. And then we have the Arabic word for way out, which I cannot read, and then way out in English. And then we have the exit code, which was added later by the team. And then we have the road names, if you know where you're headed. I don't even know where is Khalifa Boulevard South. Like literally, I don't know right now. So that's that. Okay. So there are many, many ways to tell you way out. But to me, it looks just like clutter. So what I did was we created a new exit code with inspiration from the shelter that I showed you earlier. Because these shelters are so iconic along the road. If you were a driver, you would see this very frequently. And if you're a commuter, you will recognize them from afar. That being said, this is not 100%. I mean, it's not every single exit are like that. Okay, but it's enough to sort of give you an idea of what's going on. Okay, so this happened. And then, again, it was approved after about 50 designs. Like, I did so many. I spent more time designing this icon than the map because this was really difficult. And I wanted to, I wanted to really take in the architectural element while making it clear still. So we tried so many designs. And we initially designed a different icon for tram because tram exits are different. But I realized we have interchange stations and I will have 2 different exit codes. So then we decided to just standardize it across the board. Sorry, I left my Apple Watch in Singapore, so I have no watch now. Okay. Yes, so this was the tram I wanted to tell you about just now. So to get stakeholders buy-in, we actually created like a case study of what's the issue we have today on tram and how can we improve it. We left this up in the office for about a month, and we have everyone from the office, the architects, the planners, our chiefs, and even our MD, we came and gave them a talk. We really needed them to understand the issue before we just pushed ahead with it, because we wanted the business to feel like they're signing up for a good deal. Yeah, and then we went on to do a prototype in one of our station that's not open yet, and then we invited everyone to have a walkthrough to get an experience of what's going on before we finally got approvals to implement the new sign system. Okay, where are we now? Okay, so these are the icons that are redesigned as part of the system. So the metro and tram logos are as existing, but they have no holders, if you notice. Like the M just stands by itself. And in the past, rather existing sign, we have the metro icon with a color code to represent each metro line. But we wanted to tie the brand closer together, so I created a holder to hold the line color when necessary. And the same thing for tram, a holder that is of a different shape. And everything related to these two networks or systems will be based on the two different shapes. So the one with the line below, in this shape will be platform 1 for tram. And then the same idea, 1 with an underline in the square will be platform 1 for metro. Yeah? However, as a viewer, you may think like, then people may think that it's line 1 for tram. How can you make sure that that's not the case, right? One of the key lessons that I learned over the years, right, while working with stakeholders is that you cannot show them signage on a screen and expect them to get it. People will always have something to comment about. So either you make a physical sign or drag them to the station or the space to see it. Because one here really doesn't make any sense. But when you're in the platform, you will get it immediately. So that's something that I had to learn quite hard in Singapore. And then, yeah, so now we know, okay? And then information, as you know, the leaf icon. Previously, the leaf icon were three Qatari guys inside the lift. But I wanted to make it inclusive, so I dragged the wheelchair into the lift. Then our exit code, and then our our toilet icon. Okay. Okay. Finally, I just wanted to talk about Kashidas. I find this very interesting for non-Arabic readers. This is a very cool feature that I learned when in Qatar, that you can simply add to a text, right? To kind of, it's stylistic. It has no meaning. The function is purely stylistic, and I found that so fascinating of the language. Like, we don't have this in any other language. So I actually secretly use this in our metro map because I wanted the station name to match nicely with the English. So sometimes you will see Kashida appearing. Yeah, and I love it. Okay, and finally, to conclude everything I just shared, I think the most challenging part, right, is usually the people, not the design. So, I mean, for the students here, don't spend so much time designing, I would say. Spend more time looking at the people, thinking about them, designing with them, showing your design to them, you know. I think that was one of the key reasons how we managed to launch anything at all. It wasn't really like, I would say you will never get a chance where you design something and people will go, wow, it's fantastic, let's launch it immediately. Like, I don't think you should expect that kind of reaction. It's more like over the time they get it and they're like, why are we not doing it yet? You know, and then they would support you and sponsor you to do it. So yeah, focus on the people and not the design, ironically. Okay, and that's all from me. This is our Gold Class train. You can come and ride it. Okay? Yes, thank you.
I'm a bit disappointed though because I didn't get to say yalla.
Yeah, how's
But,
my time? Yalla,
You're
yalla.
good. Yeah,
Okay.
you have enough time. All right, questions.
Thank you. Beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
I have a very small question. So what's the point in numbering platforms? Can you elaborate on that?
Okay. So the reason why we number the platform is because we notice people may not know their directions. Because in Qatar, station names can get very, very long. And it's easier for me to help someone who doesn't understand the language to say, go to 1. Or because,
do you know it's
because
1?
they will try to ask me what's the solution.
So basically the numbers don't work by themselves, but somebody who knows the system can use the number as a reference to help somebody else, or?
No. So we have, I mean, the 1 is on the directional signs.
Yeah, but why? Like, maybe I don't understand the situation, but when I'm trying to find the train that I need to board, I would use a map, or I would use geographical directions like north or south or uptown or downtown, depending on where I am. And then when I find out where I want to go, then it says that this is platform 1 and this is platform 2. But by that time, I already have decided that I need to go northbound or southbound, so this number doesn't add anything. So I don't understand. So is it only for the situation when one person tries to explain something to the other person, or is there a situation where this number can help like a single person navigating the system?
Ah, okay. That's a great question. So you are saying, why didn't I add platform 1 to the map, for example? Like, the information didn't come until at the station. It's almost like too late, right? So I would say number 1 would be, yes, I would be able to help someone. I would just point and say, go to 1, for example. The other one would be announcements. So I could say platform 1 is closed, and I can at least identify the space that is closed. Yeah, so to me, it's more of an identifier rather than part of the wayfinding element. Because you are right. If you don't know, if say I'm going towards the north, but I didn't tell you that north is 1, then how would you use the 1 in the first place? Is that right? Yeah. So to me, it identifies the space more than wayfinding, more than like a decision making. Yeah. Okay, I hope that helps. Yeah. Actually, to add on a bit, right? I believe that no, it's fine, it's fine. Yeah. I believe to add that was the mindset before, because the platform numbers was never mentioned. It was only used by staff. So at the back end, actually, in the walkie-talkie, they would tell each other 1 or 2, but the commuters have no clue what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Good afternoon. First of all, I wanted to say thank you for the insightful presentation on the Qatar rail system. I've been observing what you did on the Singapore new wayfinding system. And my last visit on Singapore, I had to go to Woodlands to visit the new Thomson East Coast to see your wayfinding.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay.
I know. It's a lot of effort, but I enjoyed it. I enjoy Singapore too. My question is that you've taken a different approach in mapping the Singapore, the Qatar between Singapore. Well, I see that you did not implement caplets, the station number, like the one you did in Singapore. Why is that reason? Is it more of that locals doesn't understand what caplets is, or is it just something to do with functions? That's my question.
Okay, it's about stakeholder management, and it's about picking your battles. So it's easier for me to just beautify something rather than to completely uproot the system. So to introduce caplets on the map, I will have to change every single sign on the network. Like Yoshed in Japan, JR spent all the money to change the station code for every station. So while I do have that ambition, it could come in later when the time is right. Yeah, it's a lot more difficult for you to say the signage needs to change because I think this is important than to say the signage is gonna change because someone bought a name, for example. Why don't we then add a new feature to it? So it's more about managing the situation. But you are right, having station code, I feel, is more effective. And in fact, yesterday we had a conversation about who uses station codes. We realized people who are not so language in tune with languages or reading station names, they do tend to rely on the station code. So it is helpful, especially for Qatar, which I realized I forgot to mention. More than 80% of Qatar's population are foreigners. So to give you some context, which I should have said way earlier, majority of the people there may not know Arabic or English. And the core group of commuters in the metro don't necessarily speak Arabic or English. So you are right, the caplet caplet is a Singapore term again. It's the shape that we use to identify each station or line. The same logic could be applied here in Qatar, just the timing is not there yet. Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for the presentation. Well, I'm actually more curious about your work in Singapore because we are from Jakarta and we see Singapore as our city god. Everything that Singapore did, we will always copy.
Thank you. It's a compliment.
Yeah, but the question is, it's related to Singapore. That what I know is LTA is a bit notoriously hard to reach. So I would probably want you to, if you could elaborate, like, what's your strategy on trying to reach out, government agencies, especially when in this context, I'm from Transport for Jakarta, also advocacy group. It's so hard sometimes for us to, easily try to propose something good in terms of wayfinding design. And we might want to know also about the story with the LTA. Thank
Okay,
you.
so I cannot speak from experience because I was very, very fortunate. I really don't know how the stars aligned. Somebody saw my project and it got sent to them. But the lesson here is the medium. So my professors back in school emphasized that, I mean, the medium is the message, you guys know that, choosing the right medium. I could have compiled my research into a book and presented on the table, and then nobody would have seen it, except if you come for the grad show. You wouldn't even have time to peruse it. So I chose the website as a medium because I needed it to be spread. I needed people to see it. So I would say your medium is a key point. And in Singapore, I don't know about Jakarta, but if you want to reach the Singapore government, it's very easy. You just need to complain. You just need to make a lot of noise. And enough people make noise, you will get the government's attention. I'm still a Singapore citizen, and I realize this is live stream. But the Singapore government really wants to listen to what the people has to say. So if it's an issue that is big enough and it really affects people, really the crowd helps you build the case. So if, say, you want to redesign the map for Jakarta, right, you can upload it and have it go viral. Because that was exactly what happened. Someone else's map went viral before we launched our map, and it kind of derailed our plans. In a sense, it helped us because suddenly the whole country cares about map. It was very weird. We went from convincing the management to change the map, and they went like, yeah, I guess it's fine, it's a new map, to the minister wanting to speak to the design team because they care about the map. So it's like, yeah, the people matters. So I think you can go grassroots, talk to people, find out the truth, go and, yeah, don't focus on the outcome so much. Focus on the people that you're trying to serve. Yeah, I hope that helps. Yeah.
Thank you.
One more question. Yes. Last question.
Thank you so much. This is bilingual identity. I'm focused now on Doha. Are there any specific challenges that you want to maybe warn people? Because this is something, for example, that's very present to what we do here and that I face myself where, I don't know if you are fluent in Arabic or not, but then where you realize that even some aesthetic perception of the language might actually not be exactly what it is because you have your own influences. And so you said, oh, Kashida, you can do whatever you want with that. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Then I got a big slap on the wrist by a calligrapher because there's a very complex set of rules on Kashidas that I still don't master,
Yes.
not even remotely. So I was wondering if there's any specific, tip for when you're approaching bilingual identities that you want to share.
Okay, I actually love that you mentioned this because I forgot to add this in the slide. Okay, about Kashida, right? Actually, I'm very fortunate. I have a great designer working with me. She's Arabic and she's very good at it. So she will always scold me before I do anything stupid, contextually. And I can only recognize al, A-L, and M in Arabic because those are the words that always appear on the map. And then for readers of Arabic, actually for the rest of us, right, we don't know. We notice that Arabic readers naturally read things from right to left. And we don't mean reading text, we mean looking at objects. So literally, right, this slide will look a bit lopsided to them because they would expect the whole thing to be flipped. And that was something that's very mind-blowing for me because website UI is completely flipped. And because of that, our station name signs actually are redesigned to flip also. So we have line names here, line colors, station name in the middle, and then the exit codes. Yeah, so things like that, we try our best to match both, but in terms of wayfinding, say, directions, it doesn't work. The arrows always take precedence. Yeah, so it's a tricky set of balance because I don't have that eye for it. My mind is always tuned to the left to right. So I will always check with my Arabic readers, my designers. They would tell me the sensibilities that would serve better. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Okay, and up next we have Andrew Mead, the Chief Architect for MTR, is that correct? Yes, Chief Architect for MTR Hong Kong. Came a little ways to come and visit us today.
We got the first slide up? Okay. Thank you very much. It's been a fascinating morning so far. And what I'm going to attempt to do in the next 30 minutes is take you through a 32-year career designing transit in these 4 iconic cities. And it's kind of tough going after Samuel because I spent 15 years working with LTA, designing over 100 stations for them. So when we get to Singapore, you're going to see a few bits about the maps and development of maps that we've done through there. So let's go. Toronto, yeah, it's an amazing city. And the city, obviously, each city has got an iconic skyline. I hope you will recognize the cities right from the start from there. I moved there in 1992. And being a transit mapping symposium, I thought I'd put a map up there. The bit I worked on was this little line up here, the Young Shepherd subway. And there you see the map, and it hasn't changed much over the years. And I found this on the internet, and it just shows you some of the cultural differences about mapping, about how people see, it says rape station here, boring suburbs and rich people. It's an interesting thing through there. And the people in Toronto, they would recognize these places. They would know that. And it's a really interesting thing about how mapping and placemaking all comes together in many, many complex ways. And of course, for those of us that are in transit, would recognize this as being Toronto because of the map, just the shape and the colors of the map. It's really, really interesting how it's psychology it works. Back in 1992, this was my local station. This is Davisville Station. And one of the things that I very quickly realized is that in Toronto, public transit was something you did if you didn't have a car. It was almost like a social service. And as soon as you could afford a car, you could see the state of the stations, this ceiling just falling down through here. I hope by now they've actually gone and fixed it up. But really quite a poor quality metro at the time. And one thing it did have was a really interesting art program. Now, I've mentioned I designed over 200 stations in my career, but I've probably done about 300 artworks. And I was quite a young architect at the time. And I was given the project of being in charge of the artwork program, as well as looking after the architectural design of 2 of the stations that we were about to build. And so I started to actually create artworks specifically for transit. And I love this image. This is a very old artwork. And you just get this sense of movement. It's just static images. But straight away, you get the sense of movement. And the idea of this being an icon for this particular station, a unique artwork in a unique station, people know where they are through the art. You don't need a station name sign to say where you are. You have this mental map that you start to picture where you are in the system by this big and bold artwork. And this is one of the first examples of this type of program. This is the station that you get off at if you want to go and watch the Toronto Maple Leafs play hockey. And so you see the hockey players, and you don't need a sign to say which station name it is. You'll notice there's not a station name in this picture. But if you're going to watch a hockey match, you get off at the platform with the hockey players on it, and then you can go walk around to Maple Leaf Gardens.
I'm glad you're showing the Montreal Canadiens on the Toronto.
There is a whole story. I'll go back. Sorry, I'm going forwards again. Sorry. So let's go back. Sorry. Go backwards. Can I get back? Let's take this forward. Sorry. There's a very interesting story about why they are the Canadians in that image and not the Maple Leafs. But maybe we'll talk about that once we've finished the talk. So the project I worked on was the Young Shepherd subway. And the interesting thing about this particular project as a overall, it had very, very little budget. You'll notice in this picture, this is the completed station. There isn't a ceiling. We couldn't afford it. And so the big trick for us here was how to do artwork that was totally immersive, that created this kind of center station space, but still was very, very cheap to do. And this photo's a bit low resolution, but basically what we did is we treated the entire station here, the artwork, as wallpaper. And so what happens is that as you get closer and closer up to these wall tiles, you start to realize what's going on. They've got the station name sign written and printed on every single sign. And each one of these is a contribution from the local community. And it's one of the really interesting things about how you can create art in architecture is that you create this very personal connection between what is actually big civic infrastructure and the local community. We have people that have come in, written this down, who people are residents. And of course, what happens over generations, it becomes someone's father, their grandfather, their great-grandfather, because this is permanently into the whole station. And it's anonymous. You've got to know which one of your family wrote this down. And it's all based on these little sheets. This is actually my one right through here. Each one of them is uniquely numbered. And the TTC does have a record of where every single one of those signature panels are actually installed. Another one at Bazarian Station was this series of photographs of the backs of people's heads. Even back in the early 90s, we were worried about identifying people on the metro. And so what we decided to do with the artists is we did the backs of people's heads, and the only people you see here is the artist's children. So, and this is the artist's child as well, her dog, and on this picture, this is me and my partner at the time. And we wanted people to think what was happening in the top 2/3 of this picture. You know, were we fighting? Were we arguing? It's getting that people to get through, and it's a really great way, again, of putting people into an artwork, into a station, and permanently creating an identity. Final example from Toronto is this one at Bayview Station, where you see at one particular point, as you're going down a set of staircases, you see this ladder. If you stand in the opposite location, you realize it's an anamorphic image, which is completely distorted. And we had such tremendous fun with this piece. We thought, what iconography goes with a metro station? We thought of morning coffees. So the idea you have a morning coffee, so you have this coffee lying down there on the platform. And also, what about time? You're always running late, so we put these clocks on the floor, etc., like this. And then the step ladders was a very common one because they unresolved very, very well when you were at certain locations. And then when you stood in the right location, they stood very, very clearly. Any ideas what that might be? It's resolved when you're standing on the staircase looking down. It's a little dog. And it's very deliberately looking with its nose pointing to the staircase. That's not an accident. That was planned. And so this is a wayfinding system. So we talk about maps, we talk about signs, but art very much can be part of the wayfinding network. And here you see at this particular entrance, you come up the staircase, you see this step ladder, it's resolved, you can see the steps behind you. You come down the steps, you go into that, the little dog is looking towards the staircase. Now on to Singapore. I moved to Singapore in 1996. I spent a total of 15 years working there in 2 stints. It was interrupted by my 2 years here in Dubai as the chief architect for the Dubai Metro. Again, another iconic city that you'd recognize by the skyline. But I've got to say that Photoshop in 1996 hadn't been invented, and the reality of Singapore skyline about 1996 was a bit plainer than it is today. As it's a mapping symposium, I thought I'd introduce each one with a map. And this was the system map that I joined when it looked like. They had the east-west line and the north-south line. And quite uniquely, I'd never seen this anywhere else. The line colors were actually in different colors depending on the direction. So there's actually 4 line colors here, not just what you'd expect to be 2. And I worked with Lloyd North over Citygate to develop this as the next generation of system map. Because what we was doing was designing the northeast line, the purple line that you see coming through here, and the 16 stations that's part of that project as you go through. That was then modified by Tony Meadows. And this is the system map that I think Samuel come on board, and this is where we introduced the caplets, this CC7, CC8, E7, E8. Again, it was part of a legacy system that the previous maps had had, and it introduced these very simple station codes. And what's interesting about Singapore, and maybe afterwards we can talk more about it with Samuel, is that whilst Singapore's given the names east, west, north, south lines to each identify, if you talk to people colloquially now, they often just refer to lines by colors, by the blue line, the green line, the purple line. That's not the official language of the metro, but it is the colloquial language of the people. And that's really interesting nuance that you should always listen out for when you're designing metro maps. And of course now the current map that goes through here. And I'm going to be a bit controversial here. I must admit, I don't like how congested this area has become. It's become encircled by the circle line. And compared to the previous map, oh, sorry, I've got to go back. Sorry, this one. There's less white space on this map compared to this map. And I think you can always see at the screen, it's kind of compressed it down. And again, Samuel, we should have a further conversation about that. Onto the architecture. So this is Raffles Place Station. And what sets Singapore unique about its design of stations is that we're designed as civic buildings. You know, you see real granite on the side here. These are real natural plants in the stations. They were really designed as being very important civic buildings. And even the artwork that they had in that early day was also very much about the civic pride. You have the metro, you have these heroic engineers, and then you have their obsession with civil defense. You've got missiles firing off here. This guy's got blood coming out. And then there goes a bit of nationalism. You need a national flag. And then these kids are representing the 4 races of Singapore, right? So we have 4 official languages in Singapore. You were talking earlier about multilingual signage. We have to deal with 4 languages in the signage system for Singapore. People often ask me about the 200 stations, what is the best one I've done? It's not so much the best, but this is what would have got built had I not been in Singapore. This was the entrance to Chinatown Station, designed by the architects. And this is what we turned it into. And I think I always measure success not by how beautiful a particular is, but how far have you moved the needle compared to the original, compared to what we actually delivered. And this was a lot of technical issues to do with fire safety around this particular street on Pagoda Street in Chinatown. But it's a really beautiful entrance, and it certainly saved it from that very ugly building that would have otherwise been there. The artwork at this station is by a guy called Tan Sui Han, and it comprises of a calligraphy poem etched into granite on the platform through here, and it goes on for the entire platform length. So again, when you come into this station and you're on the train, you look down on the floor, and straight away you can see this calligraphy. You can't read it, obviously, because you're going too fast, but you actually know that you're in Chinatown. And then at the concourse level, there is this very, very large mural, which is a visual version of the written poem. And so there's a whole story behind that, and if you want to know that, we can talk after the presentation. In 2000, we launched a design competition called at the time it was called the Marina Line, now called the Downtown Line. And it produced 2 award-winning stations. This is a stadium station by Woha Architects. And I particularly like this image because it shows when you get the architecture right, you don't need signs. There's no sign here to say 2 trains. There's no sign down here at the platform. It's bloody obvious where you've got to go. There's only one way in through the station and you go down. It's got this amazing 1-point perspective. It draws your eye through here. And it's from a design principle. We have the National Stadium on one side, which is curved. And on the other side, there's a series of theatres and more traditional square blocks. And that's the straight side. And that encompasses the lift and a bunch of technical rooms behind to make sure that all the ventilation works fine. And you step out and you've got this continuous skylight that streams the whole place and waves it in daylight. And at each end, there is an artwork, and it's put on stickers onto this glass screen. But it gives a very 3-dimensional feeling to the whole space. And I love this guy's getting kicked in the head by the footballer on the screen. It's a really interesting thing. And each artwork is different because it deals with this problem that it's a symmetrical station. So otherwise, how do you know which end of the station is which when you go out? You can actually identify it by the different artworks. The second station that was part of that was Bras Basah. It was planned to be the first tunneled station ever in Singapore. The ground conditions don't usually allow this. And sure enough, this was an over-ambition on behalf of the engineers. So we end up having to change the design after the competition was announced. But in the competition design, we had this idea that we'll have a glass reflection pool and an image projected on the wall of coming through. And I always think this is one of the real testaments to good architecture, is if you actually deliver and build upon what you actually said you would. This is a photograph of the actual space on a sunny day. You get this glass reflection pool, and down coming through it is the water. And this is, if you're looking from the other direction, you can see the extent, and this drags daylight all the way down. Above it is the pool, and behind it is a heritage building, the Singapore Art Museum, and it's designed to get this reflectivity going through. Quite a big technical challenge to make sure these trees didn't fall down during the construction of this. And this is just a little video. It's a bit washed out here, but basically what happens on a sunny day you get this dancing of water on the walls and on the floor. It's an absolutely beautiful space you go through. And then when you're standing on the platform, you can actually see daylight through here. So it's Singapore's deepest platform, you know, it's quite an amazing experience to be able to go there and get daylight all the way down. Final example from Singapore, I didn't include any of the Thompson East coastline, but this is Upper Changi Station, and I wanted to introduce one, particularly because it's about the integration of architectural interior design with graphic design. So we're kind of taking the design backwards here. This station happens to be next door to the Singapore University of Technology and Design. And straight away when you see their logo, you can now see why we designed it like this. So there's this tie-in backwards. So they already were there. They already had this very strong graphic design, and I made it part of the architectural design. And for the artwork program here, we actually did a contrast with this. This is fingerprints of students, and we wanted the idea of identity. And so you kind of, this difference in terms of the patterns of fingerprints. And then they are interspersed with this long panel, which is a lenticular panel, and behind that comes one word that we ask the students to say, what is your future? And so they describe that in one word, and that reveals itself as you walk down this corridor. It's a reason to go to Singapore alone. Dubai. So after 10 years in Singapore, I was headhunted to come to Dubai to head up the Dubai Metro Red and Green Line. So I was here from 2006 to 2008. The metro actually opened in 2009. You can see one of the stations just through here. And it was an opportunity really to be involved in a project right from the scratch. For Toronto, for Singapore, there's legacy. You're trying to develop that legacy, understand the history of the metro, the history of design. Here we pretty much had a blank slate and we could do whatever we wanted. Again, with metro maps, this is the map that we used to use back in the day. I know Howard came here and did a certain view on this. And again, for the panel discussion, I must admit, I never mentally think of Dubai at 45 degrees. Yet this map makes us all think of Dubai on a 45-degree slope, which I find a little bit counterintuitive. But I do appreciate the red line is very, very long, and it makes it quite a challenge to get it onto a single map. But a history of design. This is the design that I walked into that had already been developed by the consultant. And this is the design for one of the underground stations through this. We were presenting this to Mata Al-Taya, the Minister of Transport for Dubai. And I didn't quote me on this, but basically he said, we wouldn't design a public toilet that looks like this. No. And so he'd sent us off to this building. And I'd been relatively new to Dubai at the time. And of course, this building has been all over the architectural comics. Very, very iconic. And people can draw it very simply and they know where it is. But he wasn't interested in the outside. He was interested in the inside. This is what he wanted the Dubai Metro to look like. This was our reference point. And I was scratching my head like, well, how do I do this? And actually, it's a very simple solution. I asked him, who's the interior designer? Can he be part of our team, please? Because if this is what you want, this is what I'll give you. And that's exactly what happened. So we took, this is Bergman Station, original design by the first architects. This was the interpretation by the interior designer of the Burj Al Arab. And this is what we built. Yeah. It's quite a transformation. And I'll never build another metro ever like this ever again in my life. These chandeliers were made in Canada, in Mississauga, and they were close to $1 million each. Money, no object. Upstairs in the concourse, these light fins change color continuously. So there's a whole dynamic around the whole thing. And you can see it burns out a bit on this screen, but basically these light fins just kind of generally just change color across as it goes through. I tried to introduce an art program. I failed, but the RTA did agree that we could do these historic photographs. And so these are not that old, they're actually of Dubai in the 1970s. So here at Bergman, and this one's at Union Station, we just created this very large display of these images, and we color toned them to match the color themes of the stations. And here you go, is a little sign of my little dog. The horse here is looking on his way out. So again, there's a very simple thing that this is not done by accident. We actually chose the images, we created it very, very carefully. And then also with the interior design, making sure that the ticket machines were aligned with the architectural finishes. Really an opportunity to do a full integration through there. Finally, Hong Kong, which has been my home since 2013. And again, another amazing, iconic city going through here. And just seeing this building, and just take a look at this building here. That building there is that one there. This is the transformation that a metro system can make to a city. This photograph was taken in 1980, about the time when the MTR came on board. And obviously there's the airport in the background through there. This is the oldest map of the MTR that I could find. 1970, which I suspect is probably before many of you in the room was born. It shows the major lines that we already have operating through here. But what was interesting is it shows this line through here. This is what we call the Sha Tin Central Link. And it was opened 3 years ago. So just think about that. It's over 50 years since it was drawn that it kind of went through. The map itself from the original opening of the MTR looked a bit like this. It then matured and developed up to this kind of bigger map that you see through here. And as we go through, one of the things I want to show you is the liberties that map makers take with geography. You can see how this Mr. Map version and the geographical map is completely different. So this is why you should never use one of our system map diagrams to judge how big the city is and how you should really move around it. The map originally just showed the MTR network. There was actually 2 railway operators in Hong Kong. They were merged in 2007, and so the map had to be redesigned to include the KCR series of stations. And my team did a very quick review of that at the time we joined, that there's a very congested area in the middle, just like Singapore. We also had new lines opening, which meant that the map needed to be changed. So we redesigned the map, and this is the basic map that you see today. And I'll just very quickly flick through as you'll see the new lines being added on without changing the map. And that was very, very important. And one of the key successes of this was that people didn't actually notice us changing the map, that it was familiar enough before, and that all these additional maps, lines came on without it. And these are including lines that are actually still things on the drawing board, such as the North Island line and the South Island line west. And just to close, just a little bit about architecture. So this is what the MTR looked like when it opened. And again, a little bit like Toronto, there was no ceilings included in the stations, a pretty poor level of quality. And over the years, we've upgraded, we've added floors, we've added ceilings, but we've kept the character of the colors. And the colors are very, very important, particularly when you go into the underground spaces, that you kind of use the orange color here to identify which station you're at. And that was because there was a lot of illiteracy at the time when the stations were developed. And in the next station, it uses the bright yellow, and because it's architecturally exactly the same type of space. A lot of people ask me how we go around choosing the colors. Wong in Cantonese means yellow. And so if you've got Wong in the name, it would typically have yellow in the station name. Choi Hung literally means rainbow, and therefore you see a rainbow of colors going through. So some very simple wayfinding principles that go through. And the kind of DNA of our station design philosophy has been the bold use of color, in this case blue, because lam means blue in Cantonese. The station name written in calligraphy, this actually says Lam Tin in Chinese, and the use of the mosaic tiles. And those are kind of like the key DNA items of a metro station. And so when we opened up the new stations, this principle of using colors was very much in evidence. I actually teased the former chief architect who chose these colors and said, no, you just chose them off a set of highlighter pens, really, didn't you? But it's a little internal joke that we have, because it's like it just so happened to match the advert very, very well. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. But we are renowned for this kind of rainbow approach to stations and having a unique station color, and it's one of those unique features of the Hong Kong MTR. But there is a problem. because we run out of colors. So we've got 2 different stations in 2 different places. And then if you go to one of those stations, where are you now? Although color is very, very strong, it sometimes is not a really good identifier. But this is where my old friend, the art program, comes in. So you can take this anonymous space, put an artwork in it, and make it unique, make it ownable. And again, this one here, it uses children's art, which is always a good thing to use. You get the kids involved, do drawings on the wall, and suddenly there's this sense of ownership that goes back into the stations. This is my local station. This is Fotan Station after renovation, and this is it before renovation. I think the only thing we kept was the clock in the middle through here. But basically, you can see the power of art and color to really improve the quality of stations. Admiralty Station has gone through a huge amount of refurbishment. It became from a 2-station interchange to a 4-station interchange. And in the process, we have this very grand staircase. And we replaced that little rather forlorn little artwork down the bottom with this integrated artwork, which is all based on QR codes and Morse code. And this is actually a real QR code. You can actually get your phones out, and it will read this, and it will take you to this page on our Art in Transit program and tell you about the art. We can actually use this for advertising as well. So it's a really interesting kind of duplication of use through here. And in our high-speed rail station, I wanted to kind of get a sense of Hong Kong in the actual station itself. And you can see here, this is the taxi stand, and you see the neon sign. So you think of Hong Kong, you think of neon. And so what we did is we actually created an artwork based around the 3 colors, which is red, green, and blue, for the taxis, and these signs, neon signs. It's all part of the architecture, but it's also uniquely Hong Kong, and that's what makes it very, very unique. And to finally close out, one of the projects we've just quite recently done is in one of the poorest neighborhoods of Hong Kong. This is called Sham Shui Po, and it's kind of become very much an Instagram favorite with this very fanciful, colorful buildings. And what we want to do is to bring that character underground. So as you came through this station, actually get a sense you're in Sham Shui Po by actually having those buildings on this balustrade through here. And we even took that down to the platform. So we created these bench seats, which are based on these little plastic stools, and then took some of the photographs of the area and put them on the walls. And I took this picture just the other week, and I just love this. Like people just staring at their screens, but you got a sense that they are in Sham Shui Po. You don't need a station sign to actually know where they are. So it's been very difficult to get 32 years into 30 minutes. I think all of us recognize each of these cities by their skylines. I hope now you can also recognize them by my work in each of those 4 cities in terms of the architecture. Another way of looking at it would be the unique artworks that go through. But knowing this audience, you're probably going to be looking at the maps and know that they are all quite different cities. Thank you very much.
That was really great, fascinating. Thank you. Questions? Question time, yes.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
That was really interesting. I'm particularly interested in the way you used artwork as a wayfinding device. You mentioned in Dubai that you tried to launch an artwork program,
Yep.
but failed. Can you elaborate a little bit on what kind of opposition you struck there?
I think there was a feeling from the RTA there wasn't a mature enough art scene at the time. And I think there's also a certain view that because the city's profile is a lot of immigrants, that they wouldn't be doing, quote, local art. I mean, one of the differences between, say, the Singapore program and the Hong Kong program is Singapore art is only by Singaporean artists. And it's been a challenge because we've got well over 100 artworks to do there and find 100 artists. They directed me towards the heritage photographs, which are quite a famous collection. They paid quite a lot of money to get the license to use them. And then we negotiated then the changing of the colors, because that was actually quite controversial. So we actually reprinted them to match the colors. I didn't mention that the stations are based on 4 color themes: earth, water, air, and fire. And they are interpreted in different ways between the underground stations and the above ground stations. And at the end of the day, designing 49 stations in 2 years, I didn't have enough bandwidth to really go out there and do a complete art program the way in which we did in Singapore and subsequently in Hong Kong. So I think it's a good response for what is appropriate for Dubai. And of course, the architecture and the interior design is so much more powerful here than it is in Singapore and Hong Kong. You'd be in conflict with the two, quite frankly, if you're just trying to do a really complex art program.
Cool. Thank you.
Yo.
I hope it's not a bothering question, but I noticed that the 4 networks on which you have worked don't have any lines numbers or lines letters. In Singapore, you have 2 numbers at one extremity.
We have end destination numbers, yes.
Yeah. In fact, it has always bothered me because I was used to networks with letters or with numbers.
Yeah.
And even if in Tokyo where lines were not lettered, because I speak Japanese, I was not bothered by Ginza, Manurochi, Hibiya, and so on. But if I go to Hong Kong, I only remember the name of Island Line because the other lines are in Chinese, in Cantonese. So I say the red or say the blue, and I know that in Boston or in Washington I'm bothered because red is written RD, green GN, yellow YL, and for me it's completely out of sense. So why don't you adopt? No, it's not the question. How are you comfortable with the fact that they are not numbered or not lettered?
I think one of the challenges, as I said, is when you're working with cities with heritage. Let me just give the background to the Singapore and why we end numbered. In the presentation, I showed you that very early map where we had the yellow and green line for basically east-west line. The debate then was, well, what do we do for people who have been used to going in the green line in one direction and the yellow line in the other? And the solution to that was to introduce the end destination numbers. And so that's why they first appeared on the map. And of course, the other thing is that they already had station codes at that time, a very simplified version. Again, they're in that bigger map that I go through. We changed them to line-based. Right? It used to be E1, W1 for East Station, West Station. And so we had to kind of like come up with a number. So each station then had a unique number going through. And that has been a bit of a legacy system that has carried through. And I think maybe a discussion afterwards with Samuel about some of the later discussions as to how they've modified this through it. Because end destination numbers are great until you start splitting lines. It starts to upset the numbering sequence. And again, how do you do an end destination on a circle line? There's some other particular challenges there. For Hong Kong, it's never really been a problem. And I agree with you, the Tsuen Wan line, the Kwun Tong line, they've got names, but they're Chinese names. And the Island line obviously is the easiest one to remember. Since then, it's the Island line south through here. The Tsuen Ma line is the other one, and East Rail and West Rail are the other names of the lines. That, again, and there's not station numbers in this map either. But I must admit, again, it goes back to culturally and who are your users. I mean, one of the things I wanted to bring up in the discussion later was this difference between, are we signing and mapping for people who live and use the system, or are we signing and mapping for visitors? Because I am completely convinced that you could rip out all the signs and 80% of the people wouldn't even notice because they use memory maps to navigate around the spaces. In fact, knowing the number of paces, knowing which door to get onto, which is next to the escalators. But for everybody else, it would be complete chaos. So I think it's one of those things where there's a cultural difference. I was saying earlier, Richard's got this wonderful T-shirt on from Montreal. It looks quite similar to this map from TTC, which in itself looks quite similar to the map from Washington, D.C. And there must be something about North America that likes maps that look like this, and there's something that London likes maps like this, and maybe a little bit of Dubai. So there's certainly some cultural nuances in there as well.
Back there. Last question.
I wanted to ask, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It was wonderful, really captivating. My question is, art for wayfinding, how do we measure the effectiveness of that?
That's a tough one. I'm not trying to replace wayfinding via signage. There's lots of great signage in here. We're working almost at the subconscious level. It's a memory marker, which, as you come into this building, we notice we walk past a particular architectural feature. It's something that's very, very difficult to measure the success of an artwork. And having done 200 of them, I can personally think some of the ones that are successful and some of the ones that are less successful. But I'm not just trying to make them wayfinding. They are also got to be great works of art. And I can measure them, are they good works of art or not? But they could be pretty lousy artworks, but very good at wayfinding, or vice versa. So it's not a binary, is it good at wayfinding? My category, what I'm trying to do, is it a good artwork? Can only exist in the station which it is located? And some of them are great at wayfinding, others are not so great at wayfinding. We're not trying to do that, but trying to create artworks that are culturally appropriate, that resonate with the public, that don't offend anyone, that helps them make their way through the building. And it's a complex building. It's lots of people, you're underground, you can't see your way around the city through here. And that technique, as I showed at Sham Shui Po, bring the city underground. We've done that in a number of stations. We also did it at Wan Chai Station, where we took the nightlife area and took a series of photographs underground with the ballet company to make it all unique. So it's not simply, but to answer your question, it's very, very difficult. I haven't got a way of actually measuring it through there. But I just say the way in which we measure success is on a multifaceted level, not just as, are they great at wayfinding? I personally think you could take out any one of the artworks and you should be able to find your way around the station just as easily. Thank you.
Up next we have Late. Yes, ready? Yeah. I think we'll do the break after, then Ilya, then the panel. Light comes to us from Beijing. He has a great app. You're going to be talking about your app, I presume? I think so, yes. You can look it up. It's Metroman on the .cn on the, well, it doesn't have the .cn in the app name on the App Store, I don't think. No, if in the App Store, though, you can find it, Metroman, yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. Okay. 大家好. Hello everyone. My Chinese name is Hu Chenguang, and you can call me Light. And it means the same means in Chinese. And at first, okay, I'm a nature map designer from China, and I'm not an expert. I'm just a lover for designing a map. And at first, I have to thank Jörg and Richard for inviting me. I'm very excited. But in China, no one invite me to have a talk. So today, thank you. I'm a little nervous. It's my first time to give a presentation in English. So please allow me to use very simple words to express what I'm thinking about. So back to the title. I gave a very straightforward title to Richard. And it's written Balancing Art and Practicality. Yeah, and I changed two words to aesthetics and utility. I think it looks much more better than what I want to tell I want to tell you about what I intend to express. And next, I'm going to talk about it in 4 parts, representing 4 different stages of my designs during the past years. Okay. And as we know, Nature Map is a tool. It helps people to solve problems and leading them the way to the destinations. But also, it can be artwork or even a cultural symbol. So I take that cultural symbol from one city, this a sock from the London Underground. Yeah. But most of the maps was very complex. So designers like Harry Big come up with this creative schematic diagram to help people easy to read. But in my opinion, usability is the basic. And above it, we have to balance these things. On the one side, it's about the sense of the design and the people's emotional needs and the brand identity of the major companies. And another side is about the functionalities and the information levels on the map and the limitations of the different mediums and something else. But the question is, the balance does not always remain unchanged. It depends on what kind of people the map is designed for, and what medium or where you want to put or display the maps. And what stage, the when is about what stage you are staying at. It's about your experiences and what the situation you are faced at, and different popular styles in different years. But for me, I'm not an expert in mapping or wayfinding system design, and never worked in a metro company. I just design for myself. Map design is my own interest and a part-time job. So maybe I have a different experience and insight to share with you guys. So here is everything started. Oh, it's not here. On the background is a Chinese map. And I was born in a small city down there called Jinhua, not far from Shanghai. And there is no metro systems, only have bus and long-distance national railways. When I was young, I like playing computer games like the SimCities, and like collecting people and reading at home for about a lot of time. And never thought when I grow up I will design the metro map myself. After I go to college, I moved to Shanghai and studying graphic design. And the first time to meet the metro, the real one, the big metro, and soon get interested in it. The architecture, the wayfinding systems, and every design in the metro systems. And now I moved to Beijing and live there. And let's go back to about 20 years ago. Here's a picture showing the opening of the first metro line in Shanghai. So you can see that there's a poster showing congratulations to the line 1 pre-operating. And there is this kind of public transport system is a totally new thing to the citizens. They come in great numbers. Even now, people will come. Every new line opened, they will come. So after 21st century, people in China first met the metro, what it is like. And you can see the people in the train finger at the map. And this was the very fresh new thing to them. They never met what is about the route map, what is metro map. But the image is not so important at that time. The line was very short, or just only one line. People know that where the line will go in the station, where they are. So you can see the metro maps at that time in 1990s. The left is Beijing's and the right is Shanghai. And they look very simple. but you can see they are in only few places in the stations, and very visible, and not very visible. The major map is not very important at times. So for example, the picture on the top, the title, red title says "Welcome to take the subway," but not the title of the map. But you can see the routes and the stations are very small. So people not usually all use it. After some years, here's the 3 versions of Shanghai Metro map. The lines become more complex and have more informations. These 3 maps is between about 2001 and 2009. You can find the design was totally different. Every update with a new design language. This version is in 2006 and was very popular at that time. People love it. It looks like a dragon with 2 heads. But I think this makes people remember it, even if it's not very good. After 2010, the maps looks much better. You can notice that the maps are from the official Shanghai Metro. Yeah, they have the same design language, the black patterns under there. But when you look at the details, you will find the font, the languages, and the shape of the details are totally different. And the latest one used the London style again. They used the ones before. So you can realize that everything is in a mess at that time. And without any graphic standards and design languages, it seems like no one cares about it. In the metro company or the passengers, no one cares about it. So I want to improve something. Until I got this gift from my friend. It's a pocket map from the London Underground. This tiny thing is a 4-fold brochure and very small with a lot of information, and have a beautiful cover from the artist. This thing really impressed me, and I saw many people now collecting the tiny things and sell them on the eBay. So I made one copy from this style. This is my first work. Totally a London style tool map. In order to improve the Shanghai, the worst versions of the Shanghai Metro map, and I'm trying to make the lines similar to the actual geography map, and make every station name easy to read, and highlight the most important stations, use a larger type. And then I do the same thing like you. I make the metro map into a very small card size, and it's a sticker. You can cover it on a card. People used to use public transport card very much, but now people use QR code to take the subway. And it's quite useful at that time. But it's not easy to put everything on a very small site. But luckily, Chinese characters can be written by horizontally or vertically. So I can use different color to put them together and make larger, easy to read. But at this time, I realized the balancing between the design and the limitation. So I have to give up something sometimes. After Shanghai Metro maps, I start to redesign other cities. Here's Tianjin, a city near the capital, Beijing. You can notice that the center of the part looks like a Chinese character, like this. And so I came up with an idea, so I can put everything into a triangle. So I put the average shape of the station and the line numbers and the background patterns, even you can see clearly, into the triangle network. But what I didn't expect, the people loved this work very much at that time, and they start to knowing me on the internet. So I'm very happy and starting to design more nature maps. You can notice that it's not clearly the line number, the lines, and the station shape was all triangles. So after, at this part of stage, I learned about, give a lot of passion in the nature map design. And after input some official nature map, I start to design my own style of the maps. And come to the next stage. And after 2010, most of the Chinese citizens start to use smartphones. And people used to use the papers or the maps on the wall, now starting to use online websites and navigation applications. And the metro map began to change. In 2010, I was involved in a project, the Shanghai Metro official application. It was the first official metro app released on App Store in China. I was the UI and UX designer. And in the same year, a software developer found me, and we start to cooperate this metro navigation app called Metroman until now. And you can see this is the UI at that time. I start to put my metro map into the application. So after doing these two projects, I realized the way of using metro maps started to change a lot. We used to see the entire map at the first time. So the first look of the map was very important. And they used map index and legend to find the stations. But now, when we use the smartphones, always start from a small part of the map. And the place was around your locations, displaying only a small part of the map. And we fill the map with our fingers. We can see more details, and the map can tell us everything. You don't need to ask or search by yourself. So I started to redesign the schematic diagram of Shanghai Metro. And you can see the left, it's no need to be so compact and no need to worry about the paper age limitations. And I must leave enough space for every station so you can easily to touch the station. And I can display both English and Chinese in the same place. And less distortion, let people much easier to understand. And more elements of the landmark and geography informations can be added to the map. For example, the peak on the left is a part of the Hangzhou Metro map. I'm not sure you can see the details in the screen. And when you zoom in, you can see I made the city symbols into the map. It's like Hangzhou is the stone towers and the West Lake. So I put there on the level down to the map in a very quiet way. So it will not disturb other informations. And another work is about Xi'an. It's an ancient capital in China. And they are kept the old buildings and the ancient city walls. So I designed the icons and the patterns into the map. So the metro map started to become more emotional than before. So I can put more things into the map. I think the maps are not only easy to use and also let people enjoy the feeling of reading the map and remember it. So after starting the project of Metroman, I designed all the cities in China, and it's more than 50 cities you can view all the cities in this website, metromap.cn. And this year's China, oh, you can see. You see the map of China. And this year's China is in a very fast development. In 15 years ago, in 2009, and there are only 10 cities have metro systems in mainland China. But now there are more than nearly 50 cities. Not only the cities become more, the length of the metro in some cities has doubled or even. For example, the city of Chengdu in the Middle East of China, or Middle West, and have its first line in 2010. And every 1 or 2 years, there were new lines opened. The metro map must be totally redesigned, and the passengers need to refresh their memories and remember the new design of the map again and again. So I always like to design a future planning version of the map, so people can use it for a couple of years, and they can know more information, such as which line is still under construction. But the problem is, designing a future version will cost more time. You have to collecting information. It will take about half of the time. And you have to make sure everything is correct. Passengers may not care about your designs, but they very care about the information is correct or not. Another problem is the passengers often question me that the lines on the metro map was too distorted and not very conform to the reality. And when you design the maps with a lot of lines like Shanghai, it's very difficult to balance the design of feeling of the schematic map and the reality of the geography map. You can't have both. And for example, here are 2 versions of Shanghai schematic map on the left and the right. And the bottom was the geography map. So let's focus on the red and the yellow line on the top. It's totally different from the real one. The red one turns to the left. In the reality, it's to the north and very close to the yellow line. So it will misleading the passengers, and they will make the very wrong decisions and make bad navigations to the wrong place, even they know the metro map was distorted. And here's another problem. It's about your device performance. When I work with my partner, he's a developer, I noticed that when the map became more bigger and bigger, it will affect everyone's iPhones and all devices. It will not work very well on your devices. So even if the design is for the screen, the image size cannot be too large. So use vector image is a good idea, but it's not working in every situation. The bitmap image is still necessary, like the PNG, JPG, like this image files. So I started to redesign the Shanghai metro map again in order to limit the size of the picture and with more information. So you can see the new version is more compact, and I can put more information and less empty space means you can have more. You must have to make sure everything is legible. So this is the thing I'm doing right now: redesign the big cities with very much more information and still under construction, coming out with new lines. Here is the Beijing metro in 2030, maybe where there were more lines in the future. But it's a little different from Japan. Japan have many corporation companies, but in China always have one. So it's a one system, not different systems. So always you have to put everything in a one map. Another situation is the city looks very simple, but with a very long shape, and it always have a lot of empty spaces. Here's the city called Dalian, and it's a harbor city in northeast China. The city you can see is separated from the northeast to the southwest, and the picture is very, very huge. So this is the way we usually did to compressing or twisting the end part of the lines and stations, or cutting some parts of the lines to a very small area outside of the map. But these ways can save a lot of space, make the picture small. But the problem is the major maps look over-distorted, and people feel confused. Once, I was impressed by this Japanese traditional style map called Dalian Bird's Eye View map, drawn by Yoshida Hatsuburo. It's in 1927. It's a very old map. He used a perspective drawing method to deal with the map. So you can see the whole city in one picture, and without using a very large size. So I can deal with map with the same way. First, I making a schematic diagram in normal way, and tilt top and bottom at the same time, so I can get a whole major map with a bird view feeling. So here is the work looks like, and I don't know, maybe the water is not clearly on the map. But this is not a very universal method to deal with this kind of cities. It's only suitable for a few numbers of cities. Okay, and after doing so many similar styles of the city, I'm a little tired and want to try something more different. And here I want to show 4 works I did recently. Before my work, I would like to show this work designed not from me. It's from a Korean designer called 0.0. I was shocked by them at that time. They mix the national flags and the lines and the rivers and the elements together, and it looks brilliant. But however, the distortion of the map is very difficult to understand and read, and the text is very small on the map. So I think it still have to balance the aesthetic and the utility. You have to make the map useful. So I chose several small projects to start trying some emotional feels, such like this is the Delingha tramway map. It's a very small city in Qinghai province, and lives a lot of Tibetans and Mongolians there, and not all Chinese. And you can see that there are a lot of dark red and yellow golden lines and patterns in their normal lives. So I used the elements into this work to make the work more emotional. And here comes to my hometown. Finally, it has a metro line in 2022. It's an intercity railway and connecting some cities. And it's up more than about 100 kilometers. And most section of the line are overground. So you can see the view of the cities, the countryside, and the mountains around the city. So I use a very traditional way. It's a traditional Chinese painting called shanshui, means to draw the mountains and the water in a very quiet way, and to show you the feeling of the landscapes. So I want people to use the map and remember the feelings of the map. And because of the small cities with only one line or several stations, people always don't use the maps or notice them. They always know where they're going and know the station where they are. So I want to make the maps more unrememberable. I want to use them more. Another work is the hot meter. It's in the north of China, and it's have a lot of Mongolians. Mongolians live there. So you can see the texts are all in the vertical format. So this is the Chinese characters, and this is the traditional Chinese, traditional Mongolian characters. But even now, a few Mongolians can write and read the traditional characters. The government costs a lot to protect these languages. So if you go there, you will find the Mongolian characters everywhere, even in the metro systems. So, and the entrance, and the signs, and everywhere. You can see it everywhere. So I want to do something for these languages too. So I made this map. So I put the Chinese characters and the Mongolian characters all vertically, and distorted the lines a little bird feelings to let all the texts can be vertically. And the last one, I create a very unique style of the Japan high-speed railway, known as the Shinkansen. The idea comes from a very professional seeing in railway system. And let's see the map on the left. You can see there's a circle highlight the biggest city, the Tokyo in Japan. And every high-speed train starts access to this city. So the train from the local to the capital called the upwards trains, and otherwise is called the downwards trains. So it sounds like a leaf. Every line will end at one point. So I folded the shape of the Japan main islands, make it like a, I don't know how to pronounce it, shrimp. So you can see the city of Tokyo is still in the middle. And I use the sense of the Japanese traditional paintings and to make the work look like more Japan. So you can easily read every station starts from Tokyo here, and all the station is separate out to the destinations. You can read this kind of, how to say that? Shinkansen map in a very totally different way, unusual way. So designers always want the work look good and attractive, but always you have to face different situations and problems. I put 3 words here, in Chinese called 信达雅. It's always used to describe the art of languages, but I think here we can use to describe the design for major map design. And firstly, the map must be correct and usable, and then we have to improve the design of the map to make sure it's readability and a comfortable feeling. And next, we have to use the Unicode creative designs to make the work impressive, and even if becoming a cultural symbol. So wish everyone can use a brilliant metro map. And thanks. And here's my email address. Today's questions maybe I cannot understand, so you can email me. And Samuel will help me to be a translator.
Thanks very much. Well, we'll still try with questions if someone has. Yes, over there.
You made a card metro map in Shanghai. There are many stations in Shanghai. What is the core of the
Cool.
how to make what is important skill to make that size to the card size metro map is small, and what is important skill to make that small?
Wow. How to say that? Figure that. So is this page? So it's talking about this? Yeah. So maybe I'm facing the same situation like you to face about. Chinese characters are more complex than English characters. You have some characters very complex. So if you put on this side, about this side, like the credit card, so maybe you cannot read. So make sure, so I think the first thing is to confirm the minimum, the smallest size of the type, and then try to put every station's name on this paper, and then try to design the lines and put everything look beautiful and less space. So I think I can. So but I don't know. You can understand this. So yeah. Okay. Thank you. This I'm not prepared. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Any other questions? Because I have one. Otherwise, no. Okay. So, with all the fast expansion of metro systems in China, how much time, when you have been designing your maps, how much time, or have you been thinking like future-proofing your maps at all? Do you know what lines are going to be built in advance? Are you building in extra space so that later on you can add in the lines, or do you not worry about it and just redo your map when the new lines are open?
So I just said I will design a future version, and for I can use at least 5 years. But the planning in China always changed. So you must must follow the informations. Luckily, we have a lot of mature fans in China, and they used the applications and they know me. So I have a little group online. So they will send me a lot. So they will push me to, well, there are the new line informations come out. You must update your map. Wow. Okay, I will update later. So it's always like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're doing very well. You mapped all of China. Do you plan to map the rest of the world?
Thank you. Huh?
Do you plan to map all the rest of the world?
Rest of the world, okay. I always want to do the cities outside of China, but always have no time. When I want to start, the new planning information come to me. So I always have to redesign the maps again and again. So like the Shanghai image map, I totally designed about 10 versions from about 9 lines, now have about 30 lines, so have many versions. But this year I must to design some cities outside of China. The first I'm thinking about is Singapore. Yeah, Singapore, yes. Yeah, oh, you.
I have a question. I hope it's not a trap. But if I try to jump in a few years in China, we can be completely impressed by the speed of the development. It's completely unthinkable in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was thinking there were 30 networks. You said 50.
Yeah, now I have 50.
Okay. If you add the tram systems, I don't know how many you have.
Visa tram system.
And if you add the bus systems as they were, I don't know how many you have. But I think that one day the development of the metro, heavy infrastructure, will have to be a bit weaker because of the cost of that. It will happen. And at that moment, the multimodal offers will become the standard. So tram for a level, metro for a level, bus for a level. And when I was speaking about abundance, Chinese network are already abundant, but with on one level, metro. But did you begin to think how to combine with other modes? Because this is the reality of the people. If we were always careful about how to reach the people expectations, searching a bus around the station can be a nightmare. And because I've tried that in Guangzhou and in Beijing, and fortunately I was not alone. But it's really difficult. How did you begin to think how to combine the modes? I don't want this to be a trap. Yeah, if you didn't begin, it's not a problem. But it will be the work in the coming years.
So at first I have make sure Samuel， 他说的是那个，sorry， 他说的是就是地图是否要考虑，就是像公交车这些。I understand. So I have done something at the tram system is in my work right now, but the buses in China is in a very different situation. People now use the apps like it's only in China. It's like the Google Maps and Apple Maps, and people always use smartphones to solve this problem. So I think they are not so care about the information is on the map. So, but for me, the question is I have not started to think about this thing.
I understand through your answer that the sentence my boss had pronounced in the 90s, which is the future will be with no map, can occur with the buses. You know, it means that traveling by bus in some cities where the networks are very dense, to do that well, you will not have to use maps. Does that mean? It's a tragedy, in fact, for a mapping symposium, but perhaps it's the reality. No, because we are, because in a few days, in 2 days, we will have to go to the UITP to speak about that. The title of the session is "In Maps We Trust." Most of the people of the audience manage bus systems. Fortunately, the bus networks are not so complicated in many cities. But when it begins to be complicated and multimodal, does it mean that the maps are not the solution? So it's not a trap. It's not only to you the question. It's all to all the audience.
Yeah, I understand that. I think it's similar to the photography to the artist at about 100 years ago. The photography, the cameras come out. Usually people to paint people. Now, how to say that? 代替，就是对。 So I think that maybe at that time I will try something more interesting, not only focus on this kind of major map. Maybe at that time the major map will totally changed. So yeah, I think it's that.
Well, it's become art, right? You
Yeah,
focus.
maybe it's art. It's artwork.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
One more
Oh,
question.
no, no.
Okay. So you can email me. I can read your questions and think about it and reply you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, very quickly. I feel I'm very inspired by what Light shared today. Because indeed, right, what really pushed me, because I've been always very systematic and I have to deliver to the client. But what he's done is like really make you think about what the map does. So maybe to push further, I would say the bus system is so complex that it doesn't give a shape or an identity to the city itself. It goes to everywhere in the city, permeates the city. But the metro or a larger rail system actually gives identity and shape to the place that you are at. So I feel that's where the future of mapping is most likely to head. Like, it gives a visual identity to the space. Yeah, like, you know. So I feel, yeah. Yes. There are more people traveling by buses. Yeah. And then you say, well, the bus system is so complex, so don't touch it. It's the other way around. The metro system is easy. Yes. So I. Yes. Yes, exactly. Sorry for opening. I'm done.
They ship a new data set and the map updates itself automatically, and that's the big challenge now. That's what we need for buses to make it really work.
Or maybe it's just, I mean, I get this from Yo's presentation. It's just about the scale, you know, how to actually disseminate like the most important information. If it's about, you know, what mode that could be implemented in the map, I can show you Jakarta. Well, Jakarta is actually combining both buses and the trains in our map, because we see that our buses, our BRT system, is also the backbone of our system. It carries more passengers than the train itself. And what I try to do is try to find a delicate balance between the modes of buses and the train system. And well, I will, if you guys want to check, I mean, I can share it to you guys to maybe evaluate. I'm here as well. I'm up for basically all of the feedback. Thank you. I can share some of my maps if you want.
What? You have another copy?
Yeah. A lot.
All right. Great. Yes. So yeah, it is definitely break time, and this is going to be a short break, 7 minutes. Yeah. Well, I mean, you started talking. I mean, what can I do?
No worries, you can go, because I will open the mic when it's, maybe put it a little bit, sorry, yeah? Okay. You can put it...
Can I put it inside?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So...
Sorry.
No worries. We don't, it's not very common in this country to do it like you, because they are very quiet people in this country. They are very shy.
Okay.
So that is better. Can I check your voice?
Huh?
Can I check your voice 1 minute?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Where are you coming from?
Russia.
Okay. I will need you to talk a little bit with passion.
With what?
A little bit loud, if it is possible.
Ah, okay. I'm talking with passion just to test the microphone, right?
Yeah, we are good.
Was there enough passion?
Yeah.
Okay. So all good, right?
Yes. You have the clicker here, okay?
Yes.
If you are scared, you can use this.
No, it's full.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Well, Ilya finishes his coffee. Everyone should grab a seat. Or his tea. How do you pronounce it? I've never... Finish his tea. So it's time to grab a seat, everyone. Yeah, I need a cowbell. Ding, ding, ding. All right. Thanks, everyone. I know this is a short break, but we're on a tight schedule. We have a lot of talks to get through. Well, Ilya, and then we're going to have after Ilya, we're having the panel, and then you can talk all you want. We have the room. There's no worries. So yes, Ilya Birman, you were also in Paris with us in 2019, yes. I don't remember the years anymore.
I think it's 2019.
2019, yes. From Chelyabinsk, he taught me how to pronounce it. Thank you. All right.
Hey. Yeah, so I'm Ilya. I'm a designer, I'm an information designer, and I'm interested mostly in user interfaces and all sorts of stuff that has to do with transit, wayfinding, schedules, maps, of course. And I have designed and took part in designing a lot of maps, and I directed a lot of other designers' work on maps, and here are some of them. And also I teach design. These are some of my lectures on wayfinding, and here are some photos from the classes. And I do all sorts of stuff around information design, like I've redesigned the road signs for some reason. And this is actually a photo I have taken, I think, about 2 weeks ago. So it's a very, very large warehouse of the largest e-com in Russia, Wildberries. And it's one of two of the largest of their warehouses, and we are making a wayfinding system for this. So this map, this is like a diagram of this, of the area of the warehouse, and it's about 6 meters high. So they were painting it with this thing, I don't know what it's called. And what's interesting is that it's the largest map I have ever designed, but it's the simplest in terms of its information density. So it's there just for the workers to understand like how to orient around these absolutely similar blocks. And about 20,000 people work just in this warehouse, so it's really, really large. And it's painted on the walls. 5 years ago in Paris, I was talking about how a transit map is a very important piece of a graphic design in a city, and I was trying to make a case for why you should make it beautiful, not only functional, but beautiful, and how it makes it more functional as a byproduct of its being beautiful. And also I was talking about my book, Designing Transit Maps. And so today I want to do two things. I want to give you an update on the book, how it's doing, and talk about maps. I will show you several maps that I was working on in the recent years and highlight some of details that I find interesting. So we'll start with the book. So for those of you who don't know, I have written a book, Designing Transit Maps, and I believe it's the most comprehensive, the deepest book on transit map design on Earth. So that's my opinion. And this is the table of contents. So it covers everything from the history of maps and transit maps in particular to principles of map design like geography versus geometry, the scope, the orientation, the color coding, like whatever. There is a whole part that is focused on how you design a poster with a map, how you lay out things so that it looks beautiful as a poster. The longest part of the book consists of chapters on very specific details, how to design lines, stations, interchanges, all the things that make the map informative. And it has chapters on like how you would design a park or how you would put a street name on the street or whatever. And in that chapter about labels and text, there's a whole sub-chapter on how eye tracking, what eye tracking tells us about how to position labels. And finally, the fifth part has to do with how a map is not just a single picture, but a whole system, because it has to adapt to different mediums, from the station wall to a smartphone, to different audiences, to different situations, whatever, and to differently abled people, like this audio map of Victoria Line in London. So it's a digital book. This is a piece of table of contents. It shows about 90-something pages out of 702. So it's quite a large book with a lot of images and a lot of text. And the current status of it is here. So the Russian version has been long complete, and I'm working on the English version, and it has 372 pages out of, as I said, 702 already published. And since it's a digital book, you can subscribe and start reading it. You can scan this code to go directly to the page of the book. And what's great about having a digital book, in addition to it being very interactive and have nice features like search that I was demoing in Paris, is that you can update it. So the 300-something pages are already available, and I believe already the pages that are released are like the best book on this topic you can get, but you will get about the same amount of information as I published it. And I have a plan to finish it by the end of this year. I hope it works. So we'll see. Yeah, so here's what I do. And now I want to go through several maps that I either designed myself or was directing the design of, and some other designers did the work, and show you something that I like about them. So I will start with my home city of Chelyabinsk. It's here. So it's about a 2-hour flight from Moscow, which is here. And here is, it's Dubai actually, so I guess Abu Dhabi is a little bit to the left. So anyway, it's about a 5-hour flight from there, but we don't have direct flights, so I actually flew from Ekaterinburg, which is about a 2-hour drive from Chelyabinsk. So just to give you a context of where I come from. And this is our official tram map, which was designed over the years by many people, which I have listed there. And it's all over the city now. It's in every tram. It's on every new tram stop. We are replacing the stops right now. Here's a closer look. And this doesn't represent the colors well, but yeah, you still can see that there are landmarks, there are street names, there are the largest parks, and there is the river, but the river you can't see. Anyway, it's a geometrical map, but it has some geographical details underneath. And there's this place encircled in red. There's nothing special about this place, but here's a photo from there, just for you to understand like where I live. So there's a tram, there's a lot of snow, And this was taken, I think, also maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So what I want to focus on here is first the gapless bundles of lines. So usually when you have several lines running on the same street, sharing the same stops, you would put gaps between them to improve legibility. But I don't like that because it also makes the map noisier, less elegant. And what I strive for in my designs is to remove the gaps without sacrificing legibility. And it's not always possible to do, but here we managed to do it because we, first of all, we adjusted the colors and we also arranged the lines in those bundles so that every line is in enough contrast to the neighboring line. So every line sort of works as this separator between the lines around it, and you can still follow every single line with your eye without any problem. The second thing, okay, you cannot see this at all here. Is there anything we can do to make it a little bit darker, or should I ask Photoshop to do it? Okay, well, I'll take some time, but this is just something I have to do for this to make any sense. Don't count this time against my timeline because no. Okay, so let me see if, yeah, you can see my Photoshop, and now I can make it darker. Yay! Now you can see what's going on there. So, yeah, what I want to do is to talk about this area over here, which is gray. So this is Chelyabinsk metallurgic plant. It's a very, very large enterprise. And it has 4 tram stops in the territory of the plant, and it's only for the workers of the plant. So you cannot just ride this tram and enter the territory. On this stop, somebody will check you for a permit to make sure you actually work on this plant. And we made this area gray, so you can see that the lines themselves are even a bit more pale under this thing, and it sort of rises up on the final stop from this smog. And that's intentional because it's a really dirty enterprise, and it's industrial area, so it looks like it's dirty and smoggy. I don't know. That's just the detail I wanted to show you, which I like. Okay, back to Keynote. Yeah, here you can see it. Oh, also you can notice the airport and that buses 1, 41, and 45 go to the airport. We show these buses on the tram map just because they are important. You will see them later in another slide here. So Chelyabinsk is currently undergoing a large transportation reform. The routes are being rethought, the payment methods are being updated, the infrastructure is being updated, some bridges are being rebuilt, some rails are being rebuilt and everything. And also the transport itself is refreshed, the new buses and trolley buses and trams are being bought, so it's a large, large reform. And as a part of this reform, we also try to improve how we communicate what's happening with the transit to the people, and in particular, how we communicate the changes that are happening with the system. So we design a lot of posters with all kinds of information, and some of them include maps, as you see at the poster on the left. And there are many of them that we have to do. And we just cannot afford spending a month or whatever it takes to design a decent map. We have to do it quickly, and we use Figma for all these posters. This is just one of those documents with those posters. We have templates for everything. We have styles. We use auto layout. We use components. Everything that Figma gives you to automate your design, we use for these posters. We don't care about printing colors. It's all in RGB. We just export PDF and we print it, and it's good. So that's how it works. And this is an example. And we also, again, sorry, you can't see the colors. That's a shame. Anyway, this map is also designed in Figma, which is even more strange, because Figma, if some of you know Figma, its vector tools are really, really limited. They're very basic. And in our case, it also works like a plus because it limits our imagination. We don't spend too much time in perfecting every single detail. We just use it as a language. As if you had a font that has a particular shape of letters, you just use it and it's a given. So here we have the same relationships with Figma. And it lets us build maps very quickly as we need them, because we have styles for everything, for final stops, for districts, for streets, which are important, for whatever we need to put here. And so we can quickly make maps like this one for changes of routes in a particular district, or this one for the airport. Again, you can see the buses 1, 41, and 45 that you saw a couple of slides before, but this time they are on the geographical backing of the city, which you almost cannot see. But still, we have these buses, we have their schedules, and also we have these detailed timetables for those buses. And it was quite a fast thing to do. And it's also 16 by 9 because it's also being displayed on some panels in the airport itself. And we also generate these timetables automatically. So we built a tool that takes data from JSON and uses our templates from Figma to generate this automatically so that we don't spend time for it and it all looks nice and systematic. And this one is the one I wanted to show you the most, because no designer was involved in designing of this map. It was made by Evgeny Talipov, who is a transit expert. He works in the transit authority. He is expert in planning of routes and all that stuff. And he just needed this map for a routine social media posting about some changes. And over the recent months, he learned Figma enough to be able to do that. And now we get these maps. Like, I was not overseeing this. No other designer touched it. But I was following their social media, and I saw this map. And I had, well, if you're a designer, of course you will see a lot of things you would do differently. But as something that is just made automatically, this is very good. I'm very happy about it. And this is just another photo from snowy Chelyabinsk. The trolleybus operator is hiring drivers, so we designed it. They asked me to design a poster about hiring drivers, and I came up with this, and they did it. So now we have several. It's not on every trolleybus, but some of them run with these telephone numbers where you should call to become the driver. So it looks nice. Now let's move to Derbent, which is another city in Russia in a region called Dagestan. It's a much smaller city. And they also have a transit reform, which is also smaller, but still. And they asked us to design a bus map for their reform. And it reflects the first step of their reform. So this is what it looks like. Again, here's a closer look. This is the center of the city. They have 12 bus routes, and as you can see, they are insane. So they weave like crazy. They take different streets when they run in opposite directions. Sometimes they would miss a stop for no reason. One route would miss a stop where the others do stop, or it would only miss it in one direction, but not in the other direction for no good reason. And that's the truth. So we had to display it somehow. And the reform started by changing just some of these routes. Oh, okay, I forgot to tell you about my favorite route, route number 5. So it's the craziest of all. So if you see, we have this inside, a smaller map of route number 5 to explain what's going on with it. So here's the inside. So as it enters the city center, it first goes up, then left, then all the way down, then right, then all the way up again, then left again, then halfway down, and then it goes outside of the city center. Why? I don't know. That's the route. And so we explained it here. And when I asked the transit authorities in their band, like, how would a passenger who is waiting for the bus at this stop, indicated by the letter A, who wants to go to the stop indicated B, how would they know if they see that the bus number 5 is arriving, if they would go to the stop B or the stop C? And the answer is they ask the driver. So that's what we had to work with. So the reform started by bringing some sanity to at least some of the routes. They started with the routes 3, 4, 7, and 10, and we decided to display them in much thicker lines. They're the yellow one and the green one. And almost all of them run through this city center. And here are these routes isolated on the whole map. So we decided to make do with just 2 colors instead of using 4 because they were enough. There's too much happening here already. So we wanted to use as little colors as possible to still display what we want to display. And here, because all of these routes run through several stops in the city center, you can follow them even though they share a color. And then they branch only in the suburbs. And we repeat, also we used this New York style discs for their numbers, which are not used for other routes, which are still insane. And as those routes improve, I hope we will also change their symbols to these discs. But these discs also follow their lines, and especially we repeat them where they branch so that you can be always sure that you follow the correct line. And this is what it looks like in context. So these lines are obviously thicker and more notable than the others. And we hope that soon more lines will share this sanity, and they will become thicker and there will be less of them. And there is one detail that I wanted to highlight. You may notice that because these lines are really thick, sorry for this JPEG, I don't know what's going on. I think it's this panel is doing this, not the source picture. Or maybe it is, I don't know. Anyway, you may notice that these thick lines are so thick that you can run the thin red line just over the green one without making room for it. We didn't want to make a gap because we would have to continue the gap here, and we just run it like this, and we decided that it was good enough. It's readable and it's clean. Nobody will confuse anything here, so it's good. Sometimes you can do things like that and nobody will notice until you show them. Now, let's move to Minsk, Belarus. So this map is rather old. I was showing it in Paris, but I was highlighting some other details that I want to highlight today. So you may see that there are 2 lines that intersect in the center, and there is this geographical backing just for the 6 very central stations, and everything that's outside of this circle is just a schematic map. Again, this thing is a little bit darker, but you can't see it. Yeah, here's a close-up. But what I want to talk about today is this station finder, which is below. So it's an alphabetical list of stations, and it helps you find the stations on the map. Usually, you would use a coordinate grid for that, but I don't like coordinate grids. I hate them, I would even say. Maybe I don't like them the very same way I don't like the gaps between the lines, so I do everything I can to get rid of them. And here, what we are using is this special designation that shows you where the station is relative to the city center. So as you see a station name, you see the color of the line it's in, and you see to which part of the map you have to look to find the station. And if it is one of the stations that are in the center, they have the circle. So basically, for example, you want to find this station, which is called Grushauka, I guess. I'm not sure, I don't speak Belarusian. You know that it's somewhere in the bottom left, and here it is. So this is something you can do if your system is well balanced around the center, when there's a very distinct center, and it's not like it grows equally in all directions. So I would try this for Berlin, for example. This is Tashkent in Uzbekistan. This is the newest map. Again, this should... is there anything we can do to make this darker? No? Because, like, it's really hard to see everything that I'm trying to show. So, you see, these colors are all different. And here they are all the same. Sorry? No? Nothing you can do? You can do anything now? Anyway, this one we've released, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's the newest one. And if you look here, you will see that I like to put geographical details on my map just to make them more informative, but this one, it has the full city geography. So you can see all the streets, all the tiniest streets you can't see, actually. But trust me, there are all the streets, there are all the smallest details of the river, there is everything that can be shown on this map. So if you look at this map, you may conclude that this is a geographical map. And of course, all the station exits are at the intersections that they have to be, or in other places in the city where they have to be. But it is not actually a geographical map. So if, again, you look from afar, you will see that the lines have somewhat geometrical shapes. They consist of straight segments, and you may even see some angle grid if you try really hard. So how is that possible? And this is possible because we were cheating. So we actually, all right, so we will need Photoshop again, because otherwise it will make no sense at all. Okay, so yeah, so what we do is we warp the city in such a way that the metro lines become straight, and maybe the city geography is a little bit distorted. But we were lucky enough for the network be such that we could do that. And you may see the distortions in the center, and I even have a video, but I don't know how much sense will it make. So basically, here's what's happening here. What's interesting about this is that if you look at a particular neighborhood that you know, it itself is not that much distorted. The relative position of streets and parks and whatever you know is still about the same. So the city itself is quite recognizable. If you try to focus at a particular area, it's quite recognizable, but the map still looks pretty. And we also have this dark version because it's beautiful. It references some national patterns, and it would be too cheesy to put this on trains. I think it would irritate the locals because it's just playing too much with all these patterns. But as a souvenir, as something you can buy and take home as a tourist, this is nice. So it's, yeah, well, here you can see all the details in this dark version. So you see that all the streets are real. They connect at the angles that they have to connect, so we can really understand which streets these are, if you know the city. Okay, this is St. Petersburg. So St. Petersburg is also a city where geography, okay, what's that? What are you doing? Okay. St. Petersburg is also the city where geography matters a lot because it's cut into many, many islands by many, many rivers and canals, and you have to show all this. And it also has quite an unusual angle grid here. Here's a closer look. We have very nice transfer designations here. But today I wanted to focus on pictograms. You can see several trains here and here. There's a moon and here's a coach. So here are all the pictograms that we use on this map. Usually, when you design pictograms for a map, you want to make them a family, so you want to make something that unifies them, so they are seen like they are designed by a single person, not just taken from internet where you found them on a random website. So usually you do this by maybe making them of the same proportions, maybe putting them into rectangles or circles, which is the worst way to do it. But these all look different. So the buses, you look from the side, the rail track you look from above, the plane is a little bit tilted, the train is approaching you from a perspective. They're all different. They have different proportions. The bus is really long, the rail track is a little bit vertical. But what makes them a family, it's actually quite hard to tell. It's just the designer, Sergei Chikin, who designed them for this map, he used some similar mood for them, and that unifies them. But if you really try to find what's similar between them, you can find that these white lines are of the same thickness. They mean different things on different icons. These are the sections of the bus. This is a line between the rail and the train. This window in the airplane. And also you may notice that the windows in the airplane and on the buses are these cut-through windows, like sort of futuristic-looking windows, which are not like they are in reality. But this is also a detail that unifies them all. So again, sometimes you can do things like this, not trying to put everything into a single box. And finally, let's go to Moscow. Now, there's a map printed there that says commuter rail, but it's not commuter rail, it's actually metro. And I don't know, maybe I gave you some wrong information. It doesn't matter, I will show you both. So this is a commuter rail of Moscow region, the map that I've designed for them several years ago. So this is the largest map that I've designed by area that it shows, not by area that it covers on some wall. So I don't know, some of you must be familiar with the Moscow Metro, so you may see that the Moscow Metro is here. Okay, we will need Photoshop again because I'm sorry, but yeah, so it's good I have Photoshop.
I'll allow you an extra 5 minutes in your presentation for this.
Okay, thank you. That's very kind of you. Yeah, but okay. So I'm trying to, okay, anyway, something like this. So the Moscow Metro is there, and these lines are the commuter trains. So I don't need this now. So I'm using a trick here. The metro is shown in these light gray lines, and it's just the silhouette of the metro. I assume it's a little bit familiar to everyone who is traveling in Moscow because it's everywhere, so you at least have a vague understanding of what it looks like. But then, if I have space, I would put these thin lines with the color of the corresponding lines just to make it even more understandable what these lines are. But as soon as these lines approach something that has to do with the commuter rail, like a label or a station or whatever, I would interrupt it just to make this clearer what I'm trying to show with the commuter rail. So this works surprisingly well because these thin lines are enough to carry the color which you already know that it should be there. You don't use this color to plot some kind of route with the metro. It's just a reference system for you to understand like what part of the city this covers. So this is, again, one of those tricks that I like to do to make sure that the maps that have a lot of information are still clean and beautiful, and they don't have too much stuff going on at the same time. Okay, so yeah, okay, it was just a closer look at the same thing. And finally, the Moscow Metro. So there is this map, but we also have two versions, the white version for the trains and the black version that you could, I don't know, probably print for yourself and enjoy on the wall of your house. And it says Ilya Birman there, but it was designed by a group of people, so I wouldn't be able to do this single-handedly. So Moscow Metro is developing very quickly. I'm not trying to compare it with what's happening in China, of course, but it's growing fast. So we started designing the metro map in 2021, I guess, because we didn't like what's happening with the official map. It was getting uglier with every update of the system, and at some point it became really ugly, so I wanted to get back to, I was designing maps for Moscow since 2006, so at some point I stopped doing it because the official map became good enough, but then it deteriorated, so I had to get back to showing like what it should be. So we started in 2021, and we immediately understood that it would take at least a year, but probably more, because all of us were working on the spare time. Nobody paid us for that. So we thought that by the time we finish it, it would be obsolete already. So we had to take into account all the plans of the Moscow Transit authorities of how to develop this system. And we found everything that we could find with the plans until the year 2030. And so we designed the map until 2030. And this is the one on the right. And for 2023, we just removed, or actually we made them very, very pale, the lines that were just going to open later. So here is what it's going to look like in 2030 if the plans work out the way they are on the table now. And when you design a map of such a large scale, it's easy to overlook some details. It's easy to forget about some tricky places in suburbs or whatever, but we wanted to make it perfect. We had no deadline. We just enjoyed ourselves doing it. So we took all the time we could to make it so that we love every single piece of this map. And now we do, and it's really beautiful. And it's also buggy, I guess. I don't know what's happening with this computer now. Sorry about that. So you may also notice how balanced it is. There are some places like here where there's nothing, but generally speaking, it's quite even in how the stations and lines are distributed, and it took a lot of effort to make it so, because as it was mentioned already today, sometimes it presents some challenge to distribute the stations in such a way that there are no obvious gaps on the map. So again, here's a closer look, and here's an even closer look. So you can take time to look at it even closer there if you like. And that's all I have for today. So thank you. And this is again the code for the book, and there's my email and website, and just everything on this slide can be used to reach me. I don't know. Thanks.
Thank you, Ilya. Questions?
Hey, was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on how you use Figma in terms of like bringing data in for like live updates and things like that. Obviously don't want you to have to give away too much of your process, but like just a little bit more of a walkthrough on how you do that would be awesome.
Yeah, okay, so there is not too much to to say about this. So this thing, it's not in Figma. So the design was made in Figma, but then the system that takes JSON and builds these things has nothing to do with Figma. So it's a software that some person wrote to do this, and I don't know much about how it works. But it uses the Figma files somehow. I don't know how, actually. But this thing, does it work? Yeah, these map templates, they are just components with the geographical backing, with the styles of lines that you can bend or do whatever you have to do with them. There are these numbers, there are these numbers, and there's just a template where you have enough of these elements, and you can just grab them and arrange them on the map, and it's quite quickly you can do this. I don't know if anything magic is happening here. So with this one, again, there is a component of a poster where there is a set of fields that you can fill, like this title, the subtitle, the list of rules that has to be mentioned, the date, if there has to be a date or whatever. And then they are all the same just because it's just a template. There are some plugins for Figma that will let you just take data from a list and put it somewhere, which I use sometimes. When I have data in a list, it would be easier to put it in a template automatically, but nothing more magical than that, I guess.
So I guess like Figma just works really well as a collaborative platform for templates and people like getting into the same files and.
Yeah, well, in this case, it's less on collaboration, more on automation. But automation that's built into Figma, like I said, auto layouts and components, mainly that. Of course, I enjoy the collaborative features in Figma, but with this thing, it's usually like maybe 1 or 2 people working on it. And the transit expert that I mentioned who was making these maps for the social media, he's also using Figma, but we do not collaborate on the same document. So I only saw that map in the social media, and I smiled because it just happens without me, finally.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I have one question. You showed me so many excellent maps. There was one when you did something about the proportion of the.
Yes.
Did you? Yeah, this one. So if I understand correctly, what you did here, you alter the accuracy of the geographical aspect.
Yes.
But in a way that is not suggested to the user of the final maps. I see the map and I'm under the impression that it's a highly accurate geographically.
Yes.
And then I hate you.
Okay.
You know, because I'm confused. I'm doing maybe an extra step. I don't realize, I don't understand anymore what's going on here. I'm really confused then. You see what I mean?
Yes, sure. So what's the question?
Why do you do it? Why do you use, why you do that to the user?
Well, I don't see what's the problem with it, because like besides you hating me, which is just my problem, of course. But if we take all the passengers, I don't know how that confuses them, because whenever they look, they see the familiar intersection, the familiar parks. Like if they're trying to use this map with a ruler to compare the distances.
Not the ruler, but let's say that I got this and I do a nice walk and it's 500 meters and I understand and I see on the map there's something absolutely identical, so I know, for example, I can time, oh, it will take me exactly the same time, and then this does not happen, and then I feel I walk longer, but no, the maps tell me that I walk the same exact distance. I can be quite disoriented.
Well, I don't know. This hasn't been tested, okay, so it's really new. Maybe you are right, maybe not. I don't think that it would be a problem, because I hadn't this problem in New York, for example, where the map is also highly distorted. And it wouldn't even occur to me to use the metro map, the subway map, to compare distances or something. So I don't think it would occur to the passenger in a train or somewhere to use this map to compare distances. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, again, that's interesting. Because, I'm from Paris, where there used to be a map that clearly tells you, don't worry, this is 100% accurate. You want to walk, you want to use it to understand the city and even walk, you can do it. And then there was another one that tells you, don't you dare to use this one. You can see how different it is. So I, as a user, I felt reassured. There was no one attempting to understand or walk using the ROR lines. But so because there's this confusion that I think a lot of us do it when we say, oh, this is not geographical.
Yeah.
Every map is geographical. Every single map is geographical. Can be more or less accurate, but it's a geographical representation. Schematic as you want, people like Eric Spiegelman insist, oh, it's a diagram, it's not a map. It is a map. Whatever you put on a map, it's a representation of a geographic environment. It could be more or less accurate. That's why I think we have the responsibility to guide the user in the sense of, this is what you can do with the map. This is what the map can be, this is what can, how it can be useful for you. Mm-hmm. And if there's something like that you can be misled, it has to be very evident, in a sense, or as evident as possible.
Okay, so how would you do that?
I would avoid distortions that look like there are no distortions.
All right. So I would, if it turns out to be a problem, I would prefer to put something like, I don't know, some label that, like, in the mirror, it says object in the mirror are closer than they appear. The curvature of the mirror is more useful for the driver than the strictness of the reflection, right? So here, if this turns out to be useful, then maybe the problem that you're talking about could be solved with a label or with some graphical device that explains what's happening here. But I don't see, I think
I agree with the research. It would be great that maybe I'm overstating or just imagining a problem that doesn't exist.
I think that with this map, we're just very lucky that we didn't have to distort too much to achieve this result. But maybe I'm just liking it because I was involved in it, and maybe you're right that it's too much. I don't know. We'll see what people say, because it's really a recent thing.
Thank you. And I don't hate you.
I know.
Yeah, I just want to reply on what you're saying, because maybe we had a similar use case a bit in Cairo, for example, when we designed the metro map. I think the problem here that the base map is, it seems that it's too geographic. It already has this essence. But for example, for us, when we try to distort the network map, we also distort the geography. So for example, when we did the network map for Cairo, we did the hybrid design, which totally looks like it's not real, and it totally looks like it's not geographic, and it's not accurate, but it kind of depicts the geography and the districts and all the areas and so on and so forth. So I think what I would propose maybe that make it less real, make it less geographic. It's kind of this distortion really maybe could lead to some confusions. However, in cases where you could, like opt for a hybrid form, something that is more schematic in a sense, like a base map that is more schematic, maybe it could like work out better in this case.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've made several maps like this, so I was actually interested in experimenting in this area of more geography. So, I don't know. Is that all?
That's all from my side.
Oh.
I think it's a very common debate about what happens when you distort the geography. And I think there's one factor that we should always notice, that you should see what image do the people have of the city. Like whether the people are trained to look at the city through a map.
Sure.
And then if you are superimposing a distorted image like that, then it will be a problem. But if you have trained people for over a century to look at London Underground, right? You can, to some extent, twist and turn about it, but they'll still be able to make out the things out of it. But suddenly, if you put a geography into it, people will not like it. So it's the other case than what you're mentioning about here. And it's that threshold line, how much you need to distort, right? So we started using, I'll show some of the maps that I did, and where we knew that the city never had a metro network, and they only had the image which was only through the roads. So you could not disregard the roads, even though there are only 2 metro lines. You had to show the roads and then superimpose so that they could find the junction. So it's a very dynamic thing which will evolve with the city, with the metro network and everything. There can't be one solution.
Yeah, I would say that sometimes you have to be brave and do things that are controversial, because otherwise who would do that? Like, you are talking about 100 years of history of London Underground, but somebody had to be Henry Beck to do it. It's like 100 years start at some particular date. Why not today? Maybe somebody will hate me for a year or 5 years, and at some point everyone will think that Tashkent Metro looks like this. Maybe not, but you have to try, otherwise you will never do this. Maybe, like they told us that in Japan they learn how to read maps in school, which is great. Maybe you have to learn to read this information because it's useful, and if we make people learn it when they're small, we can do more with this. We can put more information. We can make them more useful in more situations, and we could use this. So sometimes I would go with my design, I would do something that are very controversial, and I would insist on this. If I have even a little power to push, I will push, because if I don't do it, nobody will do it. So, I don't know. So,
thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, all right. Well, it's time for our panel. Thank you, Ilya.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to cap off the day with the panel, which was supposed to be before or after lunch at some point in the day. We're going to do it now. So Andrew Mead, Yug, no, not you. Oh, Yo, sorry. Andrew Mead, Yo, Zach, and Jofredo as the moderator. And for those of you who are watching us online, I acknowledge you. I thank you. I'm surprised. We actually have quite a few people watching us online. We are likely to cut the stream before the end of all the questions, just so you're aware. Thank you. Do you need more space?
Thank you so much. I can start, I think. Thank you so much, everybody. I just want to take 1 nanosecond to thank all of you. You have no idea how happy I am to be here. This kind of panel, it's absolutely incredible. We don't have a theme, right? So for this panel, that I guess that, yes, we're finding. So, anyway. I would just like start by asking each of you what is so far the thing that you learned today, the thing that you actually underlined twice, something like, okay, this I'm gonna put it in my notebook. If there's anything that strikes you among all the things that we've discussing so far. Age before beauty, you said no. Well, I just got. What's the Emirati thing? Is this way from right to left?
Sure. I think for me it's mainly that Hugo and Richard have done an excellent job in putting us all in one room. Really, because I keep learning new things every time. I keep opening my eyes to new layers in mapping and passenger information, wayfinding, new tools to wayfind and new ways of learning new things about what others have done. Really. art for wayfinding. I think that's the major one that I picked up today, I would say.
Thank you. Andrew?
I think passion and creativity. One thing is that the amount of passion in this room for what we do is quite remarkable. And the creative solutions that come about, and certainly with my personal experience, and one of the things I've particularly structured my career like I have, is that you get to know the culture of these different cities. And the metros, their public transit services, because as we discussed earlier, it's a lot more than just trains. It's about trams and buses, etc., are such a reflection of the city. And what we're trying to do in their map making is reflect that culture. And I think that's one of the really interesting things when you see designs from different parts of the world, how, there's a Russian influence on the Russian designs, and there's a North American influence on the North American metros, and that understand that cultural nuance. It's wonderful being in a room with so much expertise.
Thank you. You?
I was thinking that I'm trying to remember what was said in Paris in 2018 or 18, yeah? And yes, I was 6 years younger, but I remember that I was overwhelmed by some messages which were not, which I was not expecting about, for example, the coming of the digital age with Apple and so on. So until now, we didn't have any presentation about that, and we are only at the middle of the symposium. But I think that we are not anymore in the descriptions of facts which are happening, and we are oriented in a philosophy of project. What to do, how to answer to new expectations. Even my questions about the multimodality, it's about how will we be able to tackle these issues. So, listening carefully to everybody, I was really impressed by it, because I'm 65, so I can think that I know many, but I'm enjoying really the day, because every 10 minutes I note something on something new. So, and what I can say is that art and ethics and cultures are back in our work. Even if you say, Ilya, that Figma works for us, like IA. But I think that we are humans, and we have to convoke to our brain to be really the best for the next years. So yes, we have to be very active and very. It makes me more lively myself.
Thank you. Andrew, you mentioned art and passion. On the second subject, I just want to offer a formal apologies to Ilya, because it's because of passion. And you made me a moderator of a panel. With my temper, you see how I react if I only think for a moment that one single user might be disadvantaged by a map. That's how I react. So a formal apologies for my language. And how can we channel, this passion? Do you think we are equipped as a wayfinder or a professional in the field on a discipline that, if you type wayfind, it still has the red mark on? And it was 30 years ago then Passini and others kind of presented, and it was what, 50 years ago in Lynch, the first appearance of the term. So it's where are we now? Are we doing something wrong? Because yesterday evening we were all complaining about the client, in a sense, the way also graphic designer complain about the client, or branding designer complain about the client. So is there something we need to do, perhaps, in the category to reach the level where, okay, guess what? This time we really are in charge. This time we have the research. Maybe is the research that is not mature enough? Do you have any from your perspective?
I think, if I understood you correctly, I think the clients have been changing, from my perspective, quite a bit when it comes to the importance of wayfinding, the demand of a wayfinding consultant, the demand of having wayfinding consultants be part of the conversation from early stages of the pre-concept design, not even concept design. Me and Yug have done many competitions together because they wanted, Bjarke Ingels Group wanted to involve us on a lot of the master plans that they're working on. We've had LWK involve us on a lot of the master plans that they're working on, or a lot of the competitions they're working on. Whenever they see that there's need for wayfinding, when they're also innovating, we're working on something out of Oman, one of our sustainable cities master plans, and the architect wanted to involve us with the client and took us to introduce us to the client and to prove our necessity. Unfortunately, they didn't come out of that very, very happy, but you picked a whole lot of holes in their master plan that basically put the architect 10 steps behind. But still, the usefulness of the wayfinder comes through, especially when you're trying to innovate and from a user's perspective, when you're trying to change the way the users interface with the city, or change the tradition today is vehicular centric in this region and becomes pedestrian centric. It actually comes with a lot of issues and problems, and that is where we're, as wayfinders, we bring that to the forefront. We address those issues first and foremost.
I should preface this by saying I've been a professional client all my career. So when it's interesting, the consultant says, "Yeah, I wish the clients could do better." I sit there and I'm, okay, how can I do better? And I go on to say that I got into becoming a client. I am a qualified architect, but not any particular specialist training in transit design. I've just been doing it for 32 plus years. Because I realized, A, I wasn't that good an architect, and B, I loved working in the public realm with people. And you design a hotel, you design a hospital. People are on holiday go to hotels, people are sick go to hospitals. Everybody uses transit. It's the most used buildings ever, and that's kind of why I steered my career in that. But particularly when it comes down to wayfinding, to mapping, I think the most important map of all is the mental map that's in your head. And what we are as professionals are creating as ways of influencing, building that mental map. And whether we do it through art, whether we do it for a formal map, whether it's done through a sign, whether it's done through the design of a building that's very distinctive. And you mentioned Bjarke Ingels and working with some of the big architects. And often the clients, and when we talk about the developers, the guys who are hiring those architects, are hiring them because the name gets them something to sell. They're not interested in particularly in architecture. They're certainly not interested in wayfinding. They're interested in making money. And we often, as wayfinding is coming in, as you were describing earlier, fixing problems, trying to solve some of these things where it should be approached holistically at the start. So I think that's the really interesting part. But the reality of clients, and I say, as a professional client, it's not just me. I'm just the architect, typically working in a very engineering-led organization. And when we talk about public transit, it is a multifaceted, usually government and political influence client that is eventually calling the shots. And the frustrating thing always for me is that we're dealing with people who are not trained in the creative professions, architecture, engineering, wayfinding, who are ultimately taking decisions. And so how can you use language? I think that's a good example earlier about the consequences. I think you were saying earlier about the consequences of making the wrong decision, trying to educate and nudge them in the right perspective. Because that's when we finally get legible cities, and legible wayfinding comes naturally.
If I try to answer to this question, in fact, I have to use my multicultural nature, because wayfinding doesn't exist in French. En français, ça n'existe pas.
Je sais, malheureusement.
But perhaps, fortunately, that it forces us to think in some other ways. And for example, the word design doesn't have the same meaning in English and in French. So English-speaking people and non-French-speaking people can't imagine how it's bothering. Because design is mostly used in French as an adjective. A false sense of, oh, this cup is very design. So all the decision makers, all the politicians, all members of the family will use the word design like that. Do you say about something, oh, this building is very architecture? No. So, and you don't use design as an adjective in English. So it means that if you put that away, the word design is rather precise compared to the design used in English, which embraces all the forms of conception. So perhaps if I replace wayfinding by moving design, I can answer better to your question, because it's always about putting the shoes of the user. For example, I was militating during months recently before my retirement about multimodality and interchanges, to how to create better hubs. You know that in the committee, and so it's very complicated, but because it's first about governance. It's not about the techniques in architecture, in urbanism, in design. It's about how to take the decisions. And my president, who is the former prime minister in France, Jean Castex, said, okay, pôles multimodaux, so multimodal places, it's technical word. I would like to I prefer to say, let's produce a continuous and consistent customer experience. So I was thinking, he didn't go in a design school, but he's saying the good sentence. So if I come back to your question, wayfinding is about creating continuous, consistent, pleasant experiences. And the word experience, thought by all the designers since decades, not the word experience which is now used in marketing, you know, we have to create experiences when they go to a shop. No, the experience, the very silent and intimate experience one person has when he does everything. So if we are motivated by that, if wayfinding signifies that, yes, I think we can create progress without always try to innovate. You know, there is also a competition for innovation. We receive from some directors, create something innovant. Yeah, but it works. It doesn't. Well, you have to change. Why? Can you imagine that? Sorry if I come back to the Ile-de-France drama about the signs which have changed. The introduction of the general director of our authority, when he presented to all the companies the strategy of changing the signs, he said, we are not anymore in the era of the typewriter. And we were thinking, it was very good, the typewriter. Yeah. So when some people make a kickoff of some change, because we have to change, you must worry. So the way to cope this type of like an aggression is to convoke how the customer experience is shaped. And so this must be our motto, our obsession, in fact.
Thank you. Just want to double check because I mean the audience is. Is there any question coming from you guys that I don't want to?
Yeah, I actually have a comment.
Go ahead,
if I'm allowed. Going back to the bilingual and there's no wayfinding in French. The closest is signalétique, which is more the science of signs and signage. I feel, and this is more of a comment, but feel free to comment on this. I feel wayfinding is more, the focus is different. The focus is on helping people find their way. You know who this is for. The wayfinding is for people, whereas signalétique feels like, could be signs for robots. It doesn't really matter who it's for. We're just working on making signs. So
signalétique designate the machine you will create to solve the problem. Wayfinding designate the result you want to. It's not way searching, it's way finding. So the find is better than way, in fact, because it's a positive conclusion. And with this word, I think it embraces more concepts than signalétique. But about signalétique in French, which is signage in English, it's better than signalisation, which is the word used in rail, which was used when I entered RITP, signalisation voyageur. The word signalétique was not existing in the 80s. Imagine that. It was created in the 70s, 80s.
Anyone else? Yeah.
This is amazing. Everything I think just began yesterday and today it's like a dream. Everything. When you talk about in Spanish also, we don't have wayfinding. The definition it doesn't exist. But I think that here we saw that the relationship between the very difficult relationship between the spatial configuration and the interaction, social interaction. They are three-dimensional things. That is the logical, mental, the aesthetic, like poetical thing, emotional thing that we saw in some presentation, and the ethical things, that is political dimension. When we put together into the project and we saw into the narrative things, well, when we write a novel or a book, when we saw into the book and we read the book, we saw inside everything. And for me, this is the wayfinding thing. This is just the intersection between the difficult experience when we move around the space. Yesterday, for example, we saw in the magnificent building, the Louvre Museum, we saw the people that are losing, like you said before, Zach, in the main hall and also in the exit. And what happened during the process? Something happened. We don't know. Maybe sign of things. Maybe the light in some point is more effective. I don't know, because it's very, very, very complex that. But I just want to share this reflection because I am very motivated with this panel and this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I take the mic again?
Please.
Because I want to share what we want to do. So, me as advisor now, how I can advise my colleagues of my company to do something. We have written a first text about improving the interchanges, the hubs. Because, in the hubs where several operators operate, passengers can be like parcels which are given from one operator to another. A parcel is more intelligent because they have it as a tag, and you have scanners which knows what to do with the parcel. But a passenger doesn't have the tech is his brain, and he has to do the effort to know where will I go. So it's very important to tackle all the issues existing in the hubs, and so I will skip some chapters of this operation, which will last several years or several decades to repair many hubs in the Île-de-France region. But the emergency, the urgency is to make people, the staff, multimodal. So if you go to the Porte d'Italie metro staff, written RATP, you ask a question about the tram or the bus. Je suis du métro, je suis pas du bus. I belong to the metro, I don't. So this is impossible. So we have to change that. And the idea we have had is to try to create a process of, it's a new word I've learned one month ago, promenadology. So making
Walkology.
Walking logy. So walking as a science. So together between several people on paths which would be decided. So you take a bus guy, a metro guy, a tram guy, and you say, you do this path like a customer, and you speak to another, and you see the signage. So you find your way, and you note everything. And after that, you will gather all the information you have got yourself by conversation, and it will create a brief to repair the place. So I wanted to say that it's not yet decided to do so, but the different directions are very seduced by this very simple and field-oriented way of working, not theoretical. And so it means that wayfinding can be the tactical discipline to tackle all the customer experience problems. After that, you see the lights, the dirtiness, so everything. But first, what does you open your eyes and you discuss with your colleagues. You were saying that some of your students were telling you, "Oh, you have given me eyes to see what is bad." So, but if it's used in a professional way, not to criticize the colleague, but to together discover the brief of what should be done. Yes, it can be very interesting to improve the situation the customers are living. It's not theoretical. So signage is really real. Wayfinding is really in the real life.
Thank you. Do we have time for another round, one last question? Okay, because I want to ask forgiveness again to just give the students just the eyes to see what's bad. So maybe just training the eyes to see also what's beautiful. And I'll start with an example. I will ask each of you if you can give one example of one physical thing that we have to see, that you encourage people to go travel and see. Could even be from your own work, okay? For me, I'm from Rome. If you ever go to Rome, go and see the landmark navigation and city planning system set up at the time of Pope Sistus, which uses obelisks, no less, Egyptian obelisks. There actually, I think there are more Egyptian obelisks in Rome because the emperors brought them all in Rome than Cairo, and they use them actually as visible landmarks. So you see one, you know where you have to go, and it's basically, it's more or less still in place the way it was half a millennia ago, the center of Rome. This is one of the coolest and more, uplifting example of a navigational system I can imagine of.
I'm going to be selfish and say Marmoom, one of the really most explorative examples. It really helps users explore the environment. It's different for the as a solution from a wayfinding perspective. It's Al-Khudra Lakes. Al Marmoum, the reserve, natural reserve in Dubai.
I'm also going to be selfish. 200 odd stations, stadium station stands out as being remarkable. I showed just a few slides, but 2 or 3 pictures doesn't do it justice. Go to Singapore, get on the Circle Line, go to Stadium Station. Is amazing.
Because I didn't speak about that, I would say Legible London. You know, the Legible London solution, the system, is like the Massivo Vignelli signage system in New York, a mark, a beginning, a kickoff of a world generation of systems for pedestrians. Paris is completely lacking. The pedestrian life in Paris is not good, you know? In London, Tim Finlay, who invented that, said, you know, the beginning, he made a survey in the Circle Line, and he discovered that 50% of the people who were taking the tube should have gone by foot, because it's so deep and the interchanges are so long that by foot it's perhaps more tiring, but it's better. But at that time, the Central London cartography was made of the AZ guide. You remember AZ?
Yep.
It's art. It's not mapping. It's you have to use that. I have that at home. So he created the system. It worked so well that TfL commissioned him and decided to develop that on the whole city for the Olympics in 2012. So London was very late. Now Paris is very late about pedestrians. So Legible London.
Okay, thank you very much. I would say that I'm happy that this panel is over, but there's an entire day tomorrow, so I'm super, super excited. See you all tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. Yes, so we are having another day tomorrow. We'll start a little later at 10 a.m. There will be coffee, I think, and tea in the morning. So if you come a little bit before 10, that's great. Socialize a little bit, and then we'll start with Yogesh at 10 from Pune, India. See you tomorrow.